Welcome to Peoria Unified. Situated in the Northwest Valley, Peoria Unified. Welcome to Peoria Unified. Situated in the Northwest Valley, Peoria Unified has a proud tradition of excellence, serving the community for over 130 years. And what a community it is! With over 300 days a year of beautiful sunshine, district residents are just minutes away from State Farm Stadium, spring training games, awe-inspiring hikes, boating at Lake Pleasant, dozens of parks, and more than 60 miles of hiking, biking, and horseback trails. Founded in 1889, the Peoria Unified School District has grown from simple beginnings to be one of the largest unified districts in Arizona, with more than 4,000 employees serving over 37,000 students. With 34 elementary schools, 7 high schools, and 1 non-traditional high school, Peoria Unified is proud to provide a multitude of educational opportunities to fit the needs of every student. With specialized elementary programs, including campuses focused on gifted and arts education, students are prepared to enter our high schools, which include the International Baccalaureate program, championship sports teams, a nationally recognized career and technical education system, as well as fine and performing arts. We're also extremely proud of our MET Professional Academy, which treats students as working professionals while preparing them for post-secondary education and careers in high-demand STEM fields. Award-winning student programs, such as the Peoria Student Broadcasting Network and Unified Sports, allow the opportunity to connect with others at the school and in the community in ways that were never possible before. From mature neighborhoods to brand new housing developments, our district schools and employees are as diverse as our surrounding communities. But the one thing that ties us all together is the undeniable feeling of family within the district. Whether you ask an employee who was raised and educated in the district or one that moved here mid-career, their answer for why they chose Peoria is always the same. Great schools in livable neighborhoods where you'll be part of the Peoria family. Peoria Unified is the place to be. A great place to work, a great place to learn, a great place to live. Peoria Unified. Every student, every day, prepared to shape tomorrow.
So, Ronald Seelam goes by Jeremy. He is our theater arts teacher. He's been here for a number of years, came to us from the University of Arizona. His dad used to be the theater teacher here at Peoria High School.
No way.
And that building that we're going to is named the Seelam Performing Arts Center after his father.
Wow.
So, keeping it in the family, obviously a rich tradition of Peoria High School. So we are so blessed to have Jeremy work his magic here. So that's the story behind the story.
It is one of the really special things about having a school in a community, in a city.
Yep.
I mean, it's just
Very cool.
I love it.
Yep.
I love it.
So, good? Where's Mr. Seelam? Mr. Seelam, come on down here.
I won!
You did win, Mr. Seelam. Mr. Seelam, you have been recognized as Pride of Peoria. The top 1% of all employees. We are so blessed to have you work your magic here. This is the certificate. Thank you. Look at this really thick list of letters there. And then Dr. Reynolds is around here somewhere, our superintendent, who has some other prizes for you. While we're waiting for Dr. Reynolds, Rosa, who has his flowers? Oh, Cedrica has his flowers.
Congratulations, Stephen.
Thanks.
You do an awesome job.
Is it Lika? All right, and Dr. Reynolds has a little...
I was at the end of the line. You've got a pin for you, little lapel pin for you to commemorate this. This is amazing. I'm sure Paul already said, read through those letters. It shows, especially with your family and the connection to this community. It's you're loved for sure. So
thank you.
Congratulations.
Absolutely.
Everybody.
Hello, Peoria Unified. I cannot believe the school year is coming to a close. But as I reflect on the past year, it's easy to think about all of the challenges. There have been questions and quarantines, doubt and uncertainty, but there has also been a great deal to celebrate. This week, I had the honor of attending each of our high school's graduations, and I can tell you that being with our 2,500 graduates as they walked across the stage to receive their diploma was among the highlights of my career. The class of 2021 has not only achieved so much academic success, earning a Peoria Unified record of $70 million in college scholarships, but they have also earned their diploma in the middle of a pandemic. My congratulations goes to each of our graduates as they embark upon this next chapter. Our Peoria Unified family has remained resilient through one of the most difficult times in public education, and I want to speak directly to our staff for just a moment. I have a great deal of gratitude for each of you who have kept our schools open to in-person learning, adapted to virtual models, and encouraged our students to persevere to reach their academic goals. Thank you for your hard work and your dedication. Your work this year, maybe more than any other year before it, has been extraordinary. As we head into the summer months, I hope you will take some time to decompress, rest, and recharge. You most certainly deserve it. To our families and community members that have offered feedback, support, and patience this year, I also want to thank you. We cannot continue to offer the robust programs, innovative learning, and ongoing support for our 36,000 students without you. I wish you and each one of our students a wonderful summer, and I am looking forward to welcoming them back to our campuses for the first day of school on August 4th.
Welcome to Peoria Unified, situated in the northwest.
Good evening, everybody. Once again, it's always great to see all the community members engage in the education of our youth here in Peoria, so thank you for that. That said, we will call this meeting to order at, looks like 6:06. Dr. Reynolds, would you mind leading us in the pledge? Thank you. And then this evening's moment of silence, leading into Memorial Day weekend, if we can keep our military families and any of those lost in the military, any lives lost in our thoughts. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. Just as a bit of housekeeping, we have a full house, and again, welcome everybody. Welcome to our governing board meeting. And again, we have a full agenda to get through this evening. And we absolutely appreciate everybody being involved and joining us both in the boardroom and virtually. And please know that we want nothing more than to hold the entirety of this meeting in person with guests in our boardroom. Peoria Unified's policy outlines expectations for public participation and attendance at governing board meetings in accordance with Arizona's open meeting law that allow for the board to conduct our business. If our expectations for decorum are not maintained, we will make changes to our meeting format as appropriate, including asking disruptive guests to quiet, exit, or if necessary, we may move our meeting to an alternative format that will allow the public to participate virtually. Once again, welcome and thank you again for your cooperation. Moving on to 3.1, address agenda, recommend changes, and consider approval of consent agenda. Does anybody, I'm going to break this up a little bit, does anybody have any items, line items within the agenda that they'd like to move around? Ms. Hill? No, Dr. Sorensen? No, sir. Right. Ms. Underhill? No. Ms. Pingarelli? Thank you. Next question would be around our consent agenda. We do have a few items from the community that some of our members are wishing to proceed with comment on, so we will pull those items. But from the governing board's perspective, are there any consent agenda items that the governing board would like to pull this evening? Ms. Hill? Sure. Okay. Ms. Underhill? Ms. Pingarelli?
Yes, I'd like to pull 6.6 and 6.23.
We do need a second for that, and yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Ms. Contra, let me know when you're up to date there. I do have one item that I would like to pull, and then we'll get to the line items that the community would like to review.
Thank you, President Sandoval. Yes, I am up to date. What would you like to pull?
I would like to pull, I believe it's 6.2, which is the HR report. Yes. And I do need a second for that. If
Second.
President Sandoval, we can go ahead and vote on this to approve the consent agenda without items 6.2, 6.6, and 6.23, if you'd like.
Yeah, actually, we do have some consent agenda items that we have some public comment on. So we're going to go ahead and pull those. Okay, sounds like there's two of them. So we have 6.4. Which is the approval of memo of understanding with Arizona Council on Economic Education. We also have 6.6, which is the, actually that one has already been pulled by Ms. Pingarelli, so we're in alignment there. And 6.19. That is the memorandum of understanding between Peoria Unified School District and Albertsons Companies for COVID-19 vaccinations. So, Ms. Contra, just to confirm, I believe we have 4 line items being pulled from the consent. I've got listed 6.2, 6.4, 6.6, 6.19, and 6.23.
President Sandoval, I do have those listed, 6.2, 6.4, 6.6, 6.19, and 6.23.
Perfect. Thank you. I believe those are the only items being pulled from consent. With that said, I do need a motion to approve the agenda, which to include the consent agenda minus 6.2, 6.4, 6.6, 6.19, and 6.23.
I move to approve the agenda as stated.
I'll second.
Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by Ms. Pingarelli. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board members. I'm just refreshing my screen so I can get a fresh list of the items that were pulled.
President Sandoval, while we're doing recognitions, I'll be moving those items that were requested to be pulled into the correct category.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Okay, moving on to section 4, recognitions. 4.1, Ms. Airy.
President Sandoval, members of the board, none this evening.
Thank you. Board comments, 4.2, Ms. Hill.
First off, I wanted to say how very pleased I am to see all of your smiling faces. It's wonderful to be able to have this meeting minus the masks and have it as an option, so I'm very grateful for that for this evening. I also wanted to make mention that I was able to attend the Peoria Flex Academy's graduation within the last week, and it was a wonderful ceremony. I was very honored to be a part of it, and it's a wonderful thing that these graduates can now move on to grand and great things and represent the Peoria School District.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Dr. Sorensen.
Yeah, I'd just like to say very grateful to attend Cactus and Centennial graduation. It's always wonderful to see students as they venture on into post-secondary success. You know, it's not just about graduation and diploma, it's about preparing them for life. So that was awesome to see. I'd also like to thank all the parents that came out about 2 weeks ago for the roundtable with students, teachers, just kind of coming together, trying to solve problems together, trying to find middle ground, and really trying to serve our community in a collaborative way. So that was awesome to experience. So anybody who showed up to that 2 weeks ago, I'm very grateful for you and grateful to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Ms. Underhill.
Yes, I just want to echo the comments of my fellow board members about graduation. It was wonderful. I was able to attend Ironwood and Kellis's graduations this year, and it's just always inspiring to see the kids, especially after a year like we had, just be so excited and looking forward to their future. And you know, our district has many, many achievements to be proud of, but I was listening to the Trending in Peoria podcast, the new communication vehicle that you guys have put together, which I also want to give props to Sarah Meredith because it's really great. But there was a couple students on there, and you know, the students, there were student leaders from Liberty and from Sunrise, and they've done amazing things. But what was really cool about their comments were kind of some of the intangible things that they got from being students in Peoria. And what they really talked about, especially the young man, I'm forgetting his name, that's terrible, but from Sunrise, was that he felt that his teachers really worked desperately to make sure that every student at Sunrise Mountain had a connection with at least 1 or 2 adult mentors throughout their time at Sunrise. And that was super, super important for him, and it really made a difference to him. And then I believe it's Miss Lopez from Liberty, who is also a student at the Met, also talked about how what kind of caught up with me was that she said that she felt really ready. Like she was excited that she was so ready to go to do this because she felt like her time in Peoria had given her so many different opportunities, and that the people that she had been involved with, both students and teachers, had really helped her to build the confidence and to be able to do things that she maybe thought she wasn't really going to do. And now she's going to go into engineering, and you know, so that it was really awesome. So I just wanted to kind of highlight those, you know, student achievement and successes, and not always just the tangible ones, but also the intangible. And really, I'm so grateful to our staff and students and parents and everybody that, you know, kind of comes together to make that happen for our kids. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Ms. Pingarelli.
Well, thank you. Well, I think I'm going to take this a different turn. Appreciate all the positive feedback, excuse me, from all the board members. But I wrote something down that I think is important to say before public comment. So I'll read it into the record. It came to my attention through public records and a recent social media post that a future former administrator referred to parents peacefully exercising their First Amendment right to oppose critical race theory as wackos. This is unacceptable behavior. Let's remember why we are here. It's about students and teaching them the fundamentals to be successful and respectful individuals as they journey through our district schools. As a board member and on behalf of our district, I personally apologize to all the students, parents, and staff for the poor behavior demonstrated by a district employee. I hope parents and community members will continue to consider our schools as a place where students and parents are respected and valued. There is a simple rule that all organizations should follow. Do not insult your customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pingarelli. So, for me, it's going to go back to the graduation. Ms. Pingarelli, I do appreciate your comments. I was able to attend Sunrise, Liberty, as well as Peoria High School graduations and 4 of our elementary school graduations. And there was commonality in, as our student leaders spoke, at these graduations, just in and around how they've really lifted each other up, right? And I think, there's, in fact, I have it at my seat here, a saying that just says, we rise by lifting others. And it was just very inspiring to hear how they work together as peers to get each other through, these times that we've gone through. The record setting, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Reynolds, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's some pretty high numbers as far as scholarships that were certainly awarded, to our students. The number of students graduating from, at the elementary level, or promotions at the elementary level, as well as, the high school level. I think it is absolutely a testament of the unwavering commitment, of our teachers, our staff, our site, district leadership, and every one of you here, our families, our parents. There's no doubt that many of you were asked to do things that you weren't, certainly asked to do, pre-pandemic. The way that everybody, this village, if you will, they always, there's a saying, it takes a village to uplift and educate our children. It certainly showed the commitment that everybody has to ensuring that our youth are put in a position to be successful. So thank you for that. Superintendent comments. Dr. Reynolds.
Thank you, President Sandoval, Governing Board, Cabinet, and guests. I'd like to begin my comments this evening by thanking our Governing Board for their commitment and dedication to our community, and most importantly to our students during this year that has been like no other. We spend a lot of time thanking teachers and support staff and administrators, and rightly so, because they are amazing and they do great work every single day. But every once in a while, it's nice to recognize our board for the decisions that you make, and that doesn't happen always. This board was a leader in opening schools to in-person learning during the pandemic, and you remain steadfast in that commitment even when times were challenging. I want to thank each of you for the faith that you showed our team to be able to keep our students and our staff, our teachers, support staff, our administrators safe. President Sandoval, Clerk of the Board, Mrs. Underhill, and Representative Pingarelli, you have been on this roller coaster with us the entire pandemic, and we thank you for being part of this board and the courage that you showed, and we appreciate you very much. And Mrs. Hill and Dr. Sorensen, your commitment to this community is clear because you chose to take your posts knowing that we were going to be in the middle of that and with a lot of challenges. So thank you very, very much. We still have a lot of work to do, but I wanted to take a moment and just thank you for your service over this past year. Thank you very much. I would also like to say that I am proud to work with this wonderful community, and we are exactly that. We are a community made up of people with diverse experience, backgrounds, and perspectives. As we continue to provide an opportunity to share these perspectives, and our governing board takes the time to listen, I would hope that we continue to do so, that we do so in a manner that builds up our community and makes us stronger. As a school district, we are committed to the success of all students, and we are dedicated to working with parents in our community to ensure that every child has a safe and engaging learning environment to build the skills they're going to need for their future and their ability to shape their tomorrow. I am blessed to be the superintendent of this amazing school district, and I'm confident that if we continue to work together, the sky is the limit on what our students can achieve. So thank you for that. So a couple of recognitions to announce this evening. We're very happy to announce that one of our very own CTE employees has been asked to serve on the Association for Career and Technical Education of Arizona Board of Directors, excuse me, for the 21-22 school years. Mrs. Christine Quant, a Zuni Hills TLC teacher, will be representing Arizona junior high educators and will be working to continue the promotion and support of CTE and career literacy in the state of Arizona. We are really proud of her and thankful for all the work she does to support students and teachers across our district. More great news out of career and technical education. A big congratulations to students in the sports medicine program at Liberty High School, and the early childhood program at Peoria High School, and the fashion program at Sunrise Mountain High School. They had a 100% pass rate on the Arizona Technical Skills Assessment, which is extraordinary. The Liberty and Peoria High School students had the highest average in the state, and the Sunrise Mountain students scored 30% higher than the state average, and it's just another example of our hardworking students and teachers and the support we provide, especially in the area of career and technical education. This month, 2 of our high schools participated in statewide and national e-sport competitions. That is new to our high schools, and shared some exciting results with us. Liberty High School's ABLE students competed in the state Fortnite tournament, which I didn't know was a thing. They earned first place in squad matchmaking. So if anyone knows what that is, please let me know. And Ironwood High School's Unified Special Olympics Club competed in the Rocket League Esports Unified Nationals and won first place as well. So congratulations to them. Last week, Liberty High School won the state championship in baseball, and we just wanted to congratulate all the members of that team and their coaches. And we have so many things to celebrate when it comes to athletics in general. There's too many to be able to read tonight, so I just wanted to point out that we have put that on our website. We want to highlight all of our individuals and teams for their incredible work that they've done and everything that goes into earning state championships. We've listed all of them on our website and hope that our community takes the time to see how many student athletes we have to celebrate this student. And the directions, the list can be found under our district if you go to the About Us page and click on Achievements. And lastly, we have some retiring employees to celebrate. We wanted to highlight and wish a happy retirement to Cactus High School Hall of Fame softball coach Bart Underwood, who is retiring after coaching at Cactus and Centennial for 29 years. And we just wanted to point out Mr. Dave Snyder at Pioneer, Ms. Connie Whitty at Altaloma, Mr. Paul Bauer at Peoria High School, Mr. Terry Ballier at Country Meadows, Mrs. Valerie Nash in our technology department, and Mr. Jeff Wooten at Kellis High School. All are going to be retiring from their positions, and there are some really long time employees and long-time Peoria community members on that list, and we just want to wish them the very best. Their retirement is well-deserved. What they've done and the impact that they've had on Peoria Unified as well as our students, we just want to thank them for their service to our district and to our community. And with that, President Sandoval concludes my comments.
Thank you, sir. A lot of great achievements taking place during this year. All right, moving on to public comment, 5.1. So a little housekeeping. The board president shall keep control. Yep. Yeah. So keep control of the meeting. Thank you. And require the speakers and the audience to refrain from abusive or profane remarks, disruptive outbursts, applause, protests, or other conduct which disrupts or interferes with the orderly conduct of the business of the meeting. Personal attacks on board members, staff, or members of the public are not allowed. It is inappropriate to utilize a public hearing, the public comment segment, or any other agenda items for the purpose of making political speeches. Engaging in such conduct and failing to cease such conduct upon request of the presiding officer will be grounds for ending a speaker's time at the podium or for the removal of any disruptive person from the meeting room at the direction of the board president. Once again, we'll spend 30 minutes on public comments, 3 minutes per comment, and we look forward to hearing each and every one of you who's filled out a slip. One thing I do want to mention, I know in our last meeting when we went through public comment, there was a few individuals who deferred their comment to another, and we allowed it, and we'll continue to allow it as long as the person who is receiving the time had filled out a green slip before the meeting. So it's important that those individuals who are, again, receiving that time has had the opportunity to fill a slip, okay? Perfect. Okay, first public comment comes from Ms. Laura Tepasan. Is she out there? Can you summons Ms. Laura Tepasan, sir? Is she?
I wouldn't miss it for a thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, President Sandoval, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds, and guests. My reason being here today is twofold. Peacefully and respectfully, I address the board asking you to stand strong against indoctrination in your schools. I'm your supporter. But I feel like in the Groundhog Day movie. It's time to add CRT to your agenda, to take a vote, to swear under oath that you will never allow CRT in your schools. Or if you have reasons to believe that sexual content and pornography is the new thing, then let's hear it. End this saga, either a no vote or let's have a dialogue. There is no cult of Waco parents. I and many others want our kids not to be exposed to such curriculum. That's all. Someone said CRT is a thing or CRT is not a thing, a nonsense anyways. The fact is that schools across America are trying to indoctrinate students in a harmful theory and political mindset. Under the umbrella of diversity and inclusion, they are trying to inject hate and sexual content. It is a diversity of genders, trans, bi, uni, many, non-binary, three-gender, dysphonia, and transition. Drag queens on PBS in New York reading to 3-year-olds. It's a diversity of sexual content material and inclusion of something in something else, like the reading materials in Loudoun County, passages from Jackson, the book about oral sex for 9th graders. Those are facts. It is not about saying Happy Ramadan to your students. That is called cultural diversity. I heard that too. Ramadan, we are not allowed to say Happy Ramadan. No. That's called cultural diversity. In the early 90s, I held cultural awareness seminars for school districts, police precincts, for the American community at large, due to an influx of political refugees to the valley. Cultural awareness, recognizing different beliefs, values, customs that the other people have that are based on their origins and upbringings. Cultural awareness is showing respect for diversity. Cultural etiquette is the ability to notice these differences in a respectful and affirming manner. Help everyone to feel valued. CRT, diversity and inclusion, scream the opposite, to instill hate, defund police, BLM, burn flags, burn American history, being racist, maybe even burning German bakeries soon because of Hitler. Similar to union movements, in the news I saw some fists dressed in red, screaming for probably salary increases as always, not for Ed. It's a deceiving name, Red for Ed. No, I am for Ed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tepezan. Next public comment comes from Ms. Becky Smith. Is she out there also? Excuse me, officer. Can you please summons Miss Becky Smith?
Hello. I originally came to these board meetings just to get in-person learning because I felt like that was the right thing to do for not only my child, but all the other students, because we all know that kids learn better in person. Since then, contrary to what many believe or say, it's turned into trying to put out new fires every time we turn around. This is not how we want to spend our day. We don't have fun doing this, but we just feel like it's important, and we have to fight for not only our kids, but parents and their rights. There's 7, everyone always asks, like, what do we want? So there's 7 things that are hanging over my head, and I feel like I can't deal with anymore, and I can't deal with the stress of it next year as my son enters high school. Those 7 things include a looming mask policy that seems to be still over our heads for next year. It's not an absolute that it won't come back. Repeated quarantining with no data to back it up. My friend's son was quarantined 6 times last year. The critical race theory that pits kids against each other based on their skin color being slipped into supplemental materials. Comprehensive sex education being slipped in through supplemental materials. Curriculum departments not being honest with the board or with parents, whether it be lying about content for a course not being written or advising teachers to lie about actual content being taught when questioned by wacko parents or whatever they want to call us for just wanting transparency in our children's education. Vaccination pressure and talk of kids being able to consent at an underage or even having implied consent for just going to school on a day should it come down to vaccinating kids at school. I know grown adults in my life who have never wanted the vaccine but have caved due to the pressure from family or jobs, and I do not want to worry about my child being peer pressured and caving if it comes to that, and I will be none the wiser. He will be able to consent, and I will not even know that this was ever done. The 7th thing would be exposure at school to harmful cleaning agents that are known to be hazardous to your health based on the warning on the labels that say that you have to wear protective equipment when using them, you have to change your clothes after touching them, and our kids are being exposed to that on a daily basis. So for these 7 reasons, I've decided that I will be enrolling my child in a charter school next year. I have been assured that these items will not be an issue there, and their slogan is even guardians of tomorrow's freedoms. So for me, that slogan says pretty much everything I want to have is the freedom over my child. Added note, if you're for defunding the police, I don't think you should be asking for police escorts to your car either.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Our next public comment comes from Ms. Courtney Siebert.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Reynolds. I am Courtney Siebert, and though I am in fact a teacher in the district, I'm a proud Desert Valley parent first and foremost. It's no secret here that the parents who are here sent the Desert Valley principals emails to the media. We've all seen the article. I would like to note that as a teacher in this district, I've been called far worse than a wacko in these very meetings that we sit in and in the private Facebook groups that turn out not to be so private after all, right? Everything's on the internet. While I have no interest in engaging in a game of tit for tat, it would make this much longer, I felt compelled to remind every human being in this room, including myself, that maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't be throwing stones from the glass houses that we all live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Siebert. Next public comment comes from Ms. Trina Berg.
Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board. My name is Trina Berg. I have been a teacher in this district for 20 years, in my 21st year, and I'm also a Peoria parent. Couple of things. Number one, our district doesn't have sex education, and quite frankly, I wish we did. Because teaching in a high school, I hear some very dangerous, extreme misconceptions from some of our kids, and these are the misconceptions and misunderstandings that get our kids into trouble. Either misconceptions about how pregnancy doesn't happen, how diseases spread, whatever. And I can't, even though I'm an educator, and it would be a very simple thing, I can't actually correct them because we don't have comprehensive sex ed at all in this district. Two, I wish, like I said, I wish we would actually consider it. I think it would actually go a long way to fixing some of these issues that the misconceptions our kids have. Two, I appreciate the support for cultural diversity, because I think that is incredibly, incredibly important that we need to be doing. We are a very culturally diverse district. We have every culture. We have kids that speak tons of languages in this district. We have multiple languages we deal with in our schools every day. We have multiple religions, multiple places that our kids are from and their families are from. So I appreciate the fact that we are aware of cultural diversity and are accepting of cultural diversity. But cultural diversity is not everything that we need to be doing. We need to make sure that representation is there. Representation matters. At Ironwood, we have the Arise program, and our Arise students are very much in the community of the schools. They're very celebrated, but I know that that's not always the case at schools. Peoria, being a special ed teacher for as long as I was, does a great job of making sure that our special needs students are integrated into our classrooms and integrated into our school life as much as possible. But that doesn't end. That's not the only place that diversity and inclusion needs to go. We're coming up on Pride Month. I refuse to not make my students and their families that are part of the LGBTQ community not feel welcome in my schools or in my classroom. Students learn best when they feel welcome, they feel part of the community, and I will never not make my students feel welcome that are part of the LGBTQ community. That doesn't mean that we're out here reading porn to our students. That's not what I'm doing. I've also heard a lot about we need to be focusing on reading, writing, and math. And my answer to that is I agree. Let's focus on those things. My recommendation is let's do that through an increase of science and social studies science social studies curriculum in elementary school. Unfortunately, those are the two subjects that tend to get pushed aside a lot because of reading, writing, and math. Let's increase the amount of science and social studies that our kids are learning from elementary all the way through school. Science is the one thing that brings all of those other subjects together, and we can teach almost every reading ELA standard through science and social studies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Berg. Next public comment comes from Yakov Itchak. Did I pronounce that correctly? I apologize if I totally messed up your last name.
No problem. It's part of the diversity that we have here, right? It's Yaakov Ishak is my Hebrew name.
Ishak. Thank you.
So I actually had something prepared to read, but some of the other comments wanted me to kind of change course here. I heard some things like critical race theory is not a thing. You know, some of the not so public comments and posts kind of counteract that it is a thing. And thank God we live in America because we have the right to be wrong, even if we're teachers or if we're educators. And as parents, we're trying to unify and trying to present this evidence to the board so it doesn't happen here in our district. Obviously, the mask issue is a huge thing on everybody's mind. I would like to think, I think it was 2 months ago, we had a parent up here talking about childhood suicide. And I think that it's important to recognize that individual and the fact that more children during COVID have committed suicide than have died from COVID. And so I applaud that parent that brought that to attention. My children are here today. They want to see how the sausage is made and a lesson in Democrat practices. So I would encourage you to also bring your children here and see what goes on in developing these curriculums and what actually influences what goes into their classrooms. really, those are things on my mind. I really think that next year should be a mask-free year. It should be optional. If you are uncomfortable with it, as many parents have echoed, wear a mask. And I don't think that it should be forced. I also believe, and one thing that popped up to my mind, if critical race theory or the curriculum, whatever you want to call it, is the solution, what's the problem? What is that solving? Do we have a problem here in Peoria of racist incidents or anti-LGBTQ incidents? I have not seen it. Even in my professional career, over 20 years, I haven't had one instance of racism that I've seen, and I work with a wide cross-section. You know, even as a Jewish individual in this community, I'm very hypersensitive to anti-Semitism and racism, and I don't see it. So I don't know if I'm blind, I don't like to think I am, but if critical race theory is a solution, what is the problem? And I don't think that we're addressing that aspect of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Isaac. Next public comment comes from Ms. Michelle Dillard.
Hi, my name is Michelle Dillard, and I'm here at the request of and on behalf of Peoria School District parents. You need a reminder of your roles and who you are supposed to serve. This board was elected to serve the community, and the superintendent works for the board. Some of you seem to have lost sight of that and have chosen instead to pursue your own personal agendas or those of associations that do not have standing above the parents and the community. So now you have a huge problem here in PUSD. It's of your own making, and it's up to you to do anything and everything you can to correct course. You have violated the trust of the parents in this district. Parents have been lied to, threatened by, and called names by district staff, all documented and verified. They have been witness to suggestions to trick parents and outright lying to this board by district employees, which the parents uncovered themselves at their own expense of both time and money. How do you expect these parents to feel turning over the care and custody of their children to you 5 days a week? PUSD has now earned a reputation as being anti-parent, and it is deserved and accurate. We expect the district to act immediately and decisively if you want to rebuild trust with the families that you serve. District employees must be held accountable, and a commitment to complete transparency should be implemented. Now, on a personal note, I think that your practice of charging parents 50 cents per page for their public records request is disgusting, considering that the items can be sent in a link or downloaded to a thumb drive and cost you nothing. It is obviously being used as a deterrent, and you should stop that practice tonight. And considering that their efforts have brought concerns to light for you, refunds should be given. I'll leave you with this. It's part of Arizona Revised Statute 1-602, the Parents' Bill of Rights. All parental rights are reserved to a parent of a minor child without obstruction or interference from this state, any political subdivision of this state, any other governmental entity, or any other institution. They include the right to direct the education of the minor child, the right to direct the upbringing of the minor child, and the right to direct the moral or religious training of the minor child. The upbringing and moral training of our children are strictly limited to parents only. Stop trying to usurp the rights of parents. It doesn't matter if you have good intentions, if you think it's best for the child or society, by whatever name you want to call it, you're breaking the law. Is that clear enough for you? Ms. Mundy, is she here? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dillard. Just as a reminder, please, as in your public comment, please refrain from using individual names. Thank you. Next public comment comes from Ms. Tracy Cota.
I didn't talk to you. I didn't have a conversation with you. Okay, I'm sorry. This is the first time I had oral surgery, and my 10-year-old told me that I should speak last week, but it was a little frightening in here, so I did not do that. So I just want to head off from the gentleman that talked, saying that he doesn't see it. That's what privilege is, okay? There are many community members that don't want to be labeled a racist. I hear they're wearing it as a badge of honor. They're fighting the good fight. But as my grandfather told me, it looks like a duck, sounds like a duck, then you're probably a racist duck, and you're on the wrong side of history. Thank you for bringing to light how desperately we need to focus on diversity. Sorry. I want to thank you. You have ignited a fire in this mom's heart. I want to make sure my kids are raised with values that make us all survive in society. Values of equality and inclusion. I do not want my kids indoctrinated into this bigotry. I will not stand by and watch you as you allow it to happen. I have been hiding quietly, trying not to listen, wanting to speak up because I knew it would cause me stress. But the more I sat quietly, I realized there are many out there that cannot hide. They cannot close everyone out and ignore. They have to sit there and listen to the community, justify why it's okay to be a racist. I have privilege to shut them out. Others do not, they live it. Every single day. They have no place to run and bury their head and ignore the bigotry to hope it goes away. I come before the board members and leaders of Peoria asking you to denounce blatant racism. These privileged parents come here as a minority, so much that they are recruiting speakers from other districts to come be loud voices. We are not Stepford wives pretending to have it all together while we belittle others that do not look like us. We are a diverse, working-class community that does not stand for blatant show of bigotry and ignorance. Before I dramatically slam my folder and storm away, which I kind of feel like I'm doing, I am asking you that you take a stand publicly and say that you will not tolerate this minority that has a loud voice demanding that we abandon diversity and inclusion. Thank you.
Next public comment comes from Miss Gina Blair.
I'm going to be honest. I was going to give my time to Heather, but I'm going to be honest with all you in this room right now. I sat out on that bench and spent probably an hour, and we spent and talked, and I was real, and I said, this is what's wrong in America. We can't sit and talk and just see each other, like I said last time. See each other for our heart, our intentions, our actions, not what we look like, not what our agenda is, not what we want to get done for ourselves. And hear what I just shared with my heart to somebody, to a group of people that I know don't feel the same way I do, although I sat and listened to their side, and I saw some of the things they saw, and actually, they're on the page, same page with some of the things that some of us parents are upset with. But I just feel that that was just twisted. It wasn't, I don't feel, it was twisted of what I said. If you want to say you wrote that 2 weeks ago, that's fine. I saw you typing on your phone while I was sitting right next to you. But what I'm saying is the level of trust, I'm just going to be honest with you. The level of trust is completely broken.
Miss Blair.
Situations.
Thank you.
And this is why parents like myself, I don't care about wearing a purple shirt or showing up with a red hat or wearing a Trump flag or whatever. I am a mom first, and that's why I'm here. And I am upset that I'm being made to be pinned against somebody and that I'm being told that I'm wearing a badge because I'm doing what's good and doing what's right. Because I just shared my heart honestly, calmly, and openly with a side that I knew is completely against everything that I believe and what I was trying to share with. And that's what's wrong. That's what's wrong here. If we can't come together and we can't talk this out, what good is all of this? You're not going to solve anything by people screaming their agendas or people, we've got this, we've got that, we've got this. There's a level of trust that has been severely broken here, and we need action to get that trust back to these parents. I am really personally now feel extremely hurt and let down. I moved to Peoria for the school district. I moved here. It was very difficult for me to do as a single mom of 2 kids who are medically fragile. And I made sure I did whatever I had to do to live in Peoria School District so my kids could go to the best school that I always wanted to go to growing up. And now there's this betrayal, there's this broken trust. We need you guys to understand we're not just a bunch of moms throwing crap and this and that at you. We spent a lot of hard-earned time. They've spent a lot of hard-earned time trying to find all this information that are facts, not just opinions. And we need you to understand that we need you to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blair. Final public comment comes from Ms. Heather Rooks.
Hello, board members and superintendent. I have a few things that are concerns. With regards to the elective course American Studies for Centennial High School that was approved to the board back on December 10th of 2020. I rewatched that board meeting. 2 board members, Beverly and Judy, asked for more information on curriculum than just a small summary of the course. Judy also asked what the comparison between this course and the 1619 project was. A curriculum coach for social studies stated that the 1619 project would be one resource used. This was also stated that the curriculum was not ready yet, as you have to approve the course first. Another curriculum person confirmed this process to the board. I thank Beverly and Judy for voting no on something with no information. This elective course was approved by 3 board members. Upon reviewing public records I found on an email dated the same day as that meeting, sent from employees to the curriculum team with the attachment of the course outline and syllabus and objectives. Why did these employees not provide the course outline to the board when they requested it? This vote needs to be canceled. There was no honesty and truthfulness to the board. I am sure nothing will be done for this employee, but the district needs to take action for lying to elected board members, community, and parents. I have been reached out to by a teacher who had explained that the curriculum team stated the district had no money for textbooks. Why don't we have money for textbooks? This is how kids learn, by opening a book and reading it and learning about what's in here. And that they have to use the supplemental websites that have changed to anti-American content. This teacher wants pro-American to provide to the students. The teacher also stated that at a staff meeting, they were asked to write on a card this question and answered it. When did you realize you were white? The teacher was shocked. I am shocked. Is this the district going to start asking my kids or all kids when did they realize what color they were? Is this the way that the district is going? How is that not racist? These teachers are afraid to come out and say this. So they come to us because they're afraid for their jobs, they're afraid for their kids, and they're afraid that they will be attacked. Seriously, asking that. Would you all want to write that down on a card? When did you realize you were white? Would you want your kids to write that down? It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Thank you, Ms. Rooks. And once again, thank you, everybody, for your comment. As always, it is very important, for us to understand your concerns and certainly the opportunities we have as a district and the wins as well. But having courageous conversations is important to enable us to make informed decisions. So thank you for that. All right, moving on to Section 7, and these are the items that have been removed. Did you need something? No. Did you want to pause and? my zone now.
Thank you.
Ma'am, it looked like you had a comment, but I apologize. Public comment has ceased, and you would have had to filled out a green slip. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, section 7. We are going to 7.1, the Human Resources Report. This isn't. I'll wait to allow those who wish to. This is a line item that I pulled, and it's regarding one of the entries, Dr. Davidson, around a recommendation to assess liquidated damages. Now, I do know, in an effort to allow those individuals to, take on their future opportunities, we have to get through this and improve this. But I just wanted to pull it just to give you the heads up. There is one of those individuals that I have more questions on. And I know we can't mention names, so I will shoot you a note later on this evening, and we can discuss how we proceed with that person.
President Sandoval, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds, in regards to this Human Resources Board report, you're correct. We aren't able to speak about those employees tonight, but if you do wish to further converse, we'll work with Ms. Contra and Dr. Reynolds, perhaps either as an agenda item or an executive session to review their request to remove liquidated damages?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think as an agenda item is appropriate. I definitely want my fellow board members to be able to take a look at this as well and chime in. Thank you for that. With that said, that's really the only comment I had on the Human Resources Report. I'm not sure if anybody else has any questions, comments on that report. All right. I do need a motion to approve 7.1, the Human Resources Report.
I move to approve agenda item 7.1.
Second?
Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Hill and a second by Ms. Underhill. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board members. Okay, moving on to 7.2, the approval of memo of understanding with Arizona Council on Economic Education. And real quick, just to set expectations, on the line items that we have public comment on, we will listen to that public comment prior to the board making their own comments and moving forward with the motion. Okay, so Ms. Underhill, I'm going to have you help me understand. This is this one? Okay. So we do have a public comment tied to this line item, and it is from Ms. Heather Rooks. Yes, that's correct. Okay.
Good.
Ms. Rooks, welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again for letting me speak. I have questions about the Arizona Council on the Economic Education within this memo. Why is this memo under the consent agenda? We have to look very closely now on everything on the consent agenda. Seems to be kind of a trend. And what is this memo with Arizona Council on Economic Education bringing into the classrooms? I'm completely for students learning about economics. I have my cousin's daughters wanted to learn more about, economics, finances, those sorts of things when they were in high school. They're still in high school, so I think that's great. But the tendency seems to be that we have missing information. And then looking at the information that was on the agenda item, there wasn't a lot to go with. So I just want to make sure that when we're voting on something, we have everything available for parents to see what exactly is coming in with this program. Is it a curriculum? Is it
teacher development? Is it going to be brought in for just economics, or is there something else that's coming in with this memo? So I didn't know if those were any questions, if anybody could answer.
Dr. Reynolds, do you want to refer
Yes,
that?
we have members of our curriculum team, if there's questions.
Ms. Rex, is that the extent of your questions around this line item? Okay. If there are any questions that weren't answered, please let me know. Okay.
All right. I brought Michelle Bentvania tonight. She's one of our social studies coaches, and she also has championed financial literacy for our district. So I'll let her answer a bulk of the questions.
Perfect. Were you clear on some of those questions that came through, or do you need them asked again?
Probably need them asked one more time.
Okay. Ms. Rex, thank you.
Okay. Obviously, we just want to know what is coming in on this. Is it just economics for our students in the classrooms, or is there other materials or curriculum or teacher development that's coming in with this now?
Governing Board, Superintendent. So I have worked with the Arizona Council on Economic Education for many years. I was first introduced to the agency or the nonprofit when I was a teacher. And through my work with curriculum, we have partnered with, to answer your question, they are a nonprofit, non-proprietary. They have resources. They work with the Federal Reserve. They work with ASU, all U of A, to bring in speakers or professional development that integrates. Right now, our big push is integrating personal finance and economic standards cross-curricular K-12. So our teachers are, in their day, social studies is probably one of the areas that they don't often get to. And within social studies, economics is the area that really gets pushed aside the most. So our partnership is to have our teachers trained in how to integrate these economic and personal finance standards in what they're already teaching in the classroom. So making some connections, for example, when you're talking about resources, making those connections of capital resources, natural resources, maybe bringing in science to something that they're already teaching. So as far as, is it just economics? They would be coaching new teachers. They would be modeling teaching in the classroom by experienced and veteran teachers and trainers. We would be eligible to be recognized as a school of financial and economic literacy excellence, professional development training and teaching strategies. We also have lots of economic competitions for students. One of the competitions is a calendar where students can create a drawing that is then part of a 12-month calendar on economic standards or personal finance standards. I actually have a copy in my office if you want to see it. But those are the types of things. We really understand the importance of financial literacy, and we want our students to be able to say, I'm glad I learned that in the Peoria district, and not, I wish I had learned that in the Peoria district.
Thank you for that.
President Sandoval, it's not a question and public comment is not a question and answer.
Okay.
I believe
perfect.
we answered
No,
that question.
Ms. Ricks, I apologize.
Thank you.
And you're correct, Dr. Reynolds. I know we have 3 minutes even on public comment within the line items throughout the agenda. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Ms. Ricks, thank you as well. Board members, questions, comments on 7.2, the Memo of Understanding with Arizona Council on Economic Education. Ms. Hill?
Yeah, I actually have a couple of questions. I don't know if you might be able to answer them for me, but I did notice that you talked about incorporating social studies into the realm of economics, and I think that is important, obviously, but what curriculum exactly will you be utilizing for that? Or where are you drawing your resources from for the specific history? Because obviously there's a lot of different curricula out there. So what exactly are you going to be utilizing for that specifically?
So econedlink.org is a national organization that has lots of lessons for students, so that's one of them. The Federal Reserve Education is another. There's also Next Gen Personal Finance, which is a third. So what the trainers do is provide professional development for teachers and then leave those teachers with ready-made lessons that then can be quickly implemented in the classroom. So it's not a proprietary.
Great, okay. And I also was wondering, I was a little confused with what this actually meant. I guess on the document there, in number 3, letter C, it says using stories to integrate economics and science. Maybe you could clarify what stories means.
Yes, we have stories of Alexander, who used to be rich last Sunday, and so we'll talk about that for our elementary students. And there's actually an activity for the 100th day of school where you can line up like 100 pennies and Alexander spends his money, or you can talk about the goat and the rug, how, I think that's a 3rd grade book, and how the rug is made from, sheep's wool, and how that gets, how natural resources gets converted using capital equipment to make a rug. So there's lots, so when we talk about stories, it's children's stories that are then, you're highlighting economic concepts in those stories.
Okay, I understand what you're saying now. I just didn't quite understand what it meant by stories. So it's basically a fabricated, like a fabricated boy or girl or situation, so they can more easily grasp the concept of economics and capital gains and so forth. So, okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Dr. Sorensen?
I would just say I appreciate the application of practical math in our students' lives. The fact that all of our students have to take Algebra 2, I think, is a state law that I do not support, and we need more of the basic understanding concept of what even debt is, since we're a nation in debt and a world in debt. So I think it's good to get some of these practical concepts for our kids.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Ms. Underhill?
Yeah, I agree with that as well, and I know that ACE has been a partner for quite some time, and I know that they've also sat on, the Treasurer's Financial Literacy Task Force and been involved with all the different groups working on this, so I know that it's a solid, program that's been put together. And I also know, I was happy to hear that it does, go toward our requirement. It's now law to teach financial literacy, so I feel like we're pretty well aligned, and I appreciate your effort on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Ms. Pingerelli? Okay. Thank you. Yeah, agreed. I think for me, I think it was, and Ms. Pingerelli, maybe you can refresh my memory on this one. I think it was a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, that we went into a financial literacy resolution. Was that right? Was it you? Was that a couple of years ago? But so, I mean, I agree with what Dr. Sorensen said. I mean, the intersect between, economics and the other, core curriculum that we teach, it's innovative, it's smart, and it integrates our students, our younger learners, into finances and financial literacy at an early age. So appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And if I could just add, in terms of the Financial Literacy Task Force, I'm actually serve on that committee with ACE, so I'm really proud to represent Peoria in that way.
And I guess it's the whole concept that just because you have checks left in your checkbook doesn't necessarily mean that you have money. And so we want to make sure that our kids, when they leave, they understand the difference between needs and wants and what you have to save for in order to do that. So that's what we're really trying to get to, so kids understand that philosophy of money.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you both very much. If no further questions, comments, I do need a motion to approve 7.2, approval of memo of understanding with Arizona Council on Economic Education.
I move to approve 7.2, memo of understanding with Arizona Council on Economic Education.
I'll second that. Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to 7.3. And is that BARR? Okay. We do have public You okay? Okay, gotcha. We do have public comment on this line item as well. It is coming from Ms. Heather Rooks. This is the BARR subscription agreement with Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation and Peoria Unified School District. Ms. Rooks?
Hello again. What is this BARR program? Looked it up. It was Building Assets, Reducing Risks. We've discovered a video on this program that was showing a California school. But they were bringing in outside people into the schools, you know, staff, teachers, psychologists, counselor. They were collecting data on our kids. Is this going to be for their home life as well? I didn't understand what this program was for that. I did see on the video that I watched, they were bringing in a pediatrician. Don't know what the role is of a pediatrician in this program. What research has Peoria collected to show the need for this program? And why is the Peoria High School, the one that is on the agenda for this, why is it already an active school on the BARR website if the contract is on the agenda tonight? When did that start? We would like to see more background on this program. I don't understand why we are not including parents' input on this program that involves our kids before it was brought to the board. I just think that we need to be careful with their vote without all the information and including some type of, I don't know, parent discussion or, you know, letting parents see whatever this program is before we bring it in. I mean, that's what we kind of do with textbooks. You know, you put them in the front office for parents to see before a board approves them. If we're bringing in a program that is going to be working with our kids on a daily basis with outside people, I don't understand why we can't see what that program is first. I see all the information that was on the attachments. We searched it. There's not a lot of information out there. So we would like to meet with the program. Who is in charge of this program? Where did it come from? Can we meet with who's going to be working with our kids before we approve something? Because they're going to be with our kids all day if you approve this. And I don't know if somebody can clarify why Peoria High School already has an active school on the website for BARR. It shows it right there on their website. It's already an active school. That doesn't make any sense if it's on the contract tonight. So does that mean we've been using it already? Or I need some clarification on that.
Thank you, Ms. Rooks.
Yeah.
Ms. Hobb.
Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the governing board. We've had the BARR program at Peoria High School for 1 year. During that time, it's important for students to build relationships between each other as they're entering their freshman year of high school, which can be trepidatious at best. So it's a new opportunity for our students, and also teacher-to-student relationships and teacher-to-teacher relationships. It's building informed decisions on how to make good decisions in high school, study skills and what have you. 90% of the students that were surveyed said that BARR had a positive influence on their first freshman year at Peoria. 100% of the teachers said that they've had a positive experience and recommended to Mr. Bauer that we continue the program. Also, 80% of the students were recognized for achievement, and they also were provided interventions for academic and social emotional issues, as we know that this year was extremely hard during the pandemic. I also would like to welcome up Stacy Christ, I'm sorry. She's the coordinator of the BARR program over at Peoria High School, so she might be able to lend even some more information.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you, Ms. Hobb.
Thank you for letting me address the questions that you have. They're very valid questions. We have, at Peoria High School, we realized that we needed something to assist our freshmen be successful during their freshman year, because research and our own research has proven that if they fail core classes in their freshman year, then their potential for them to drop out of school increases, and we can reduce the amount of electives they take because they're retaking core classes over and over and over. So for the 2 years ago, almost 3 now, we started looking for a 9th grade transition program. And we needed something that would be encompassing the way that we actually teach and use our data. We researched it. We went out of state to look at this transition program implemented in schools in Minnesota and in California. It is a program where we have, they have 8 strategies. One of those strategies is that we take our freshmen and put them in cohorts or groups, and they circle around the same core teachers, math, English, and science. We have 5 cohorts at Peoria High School right now. These cohorts, then these team of teachers meet weekly, only Peoria teachers meet weekly, and we discuss using the data that we have gathered. It could be grades, attendance, behavior, and observations that we make in the classroom. We talk as a group about these students, and then we put in place strength-based interventions. These are interventions that allow us to use what the student already is strong in. And so if someone is in theater, for example, but they're failing their math class, how can we incorporate those 2 things to, for an intervention? So this has been a program that was approved last year, and the reason why you haven't seen it is because this is now going to be our 2nd year of the implementation. It is only Peoria. I do have a BARR coach that comes in and tells me what I can do better as a BARR facilitator for our school. The data only goes to us. We don't give that data to anybody else. And I don't know if there's other questions that I have not answered.
No, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the chance to tell you about BARR. I have to tell you that I'm extremely passionate about it. It is something that I feel very strongly about. Thank you.
If you don't mind staying over with Miss
Christ,
yeah.
Stacy Christ.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the board members have some.
Ms. Meyerson.
Thank you, President Sandoval, members of the governing board. I will note that year 1 was brought to the governing board for approval on May 23rd, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Ms. Hill, questions, comments?
It actually does sound like a very good program, and I can understand, you know, 9th graders, freshmen coming into high schools, that they do have issues, and it's a totally different experience getting into high school, so I do understand that. My question for you is, you mentioned obviously that you do gather data and that you do share data. I realize it stays within your group, but what data exactly are you gathering?
When we had usable AZ Merit data, we used that, so we would look up the previous test scores that students had. We use their current scores. I run a report so that the students, their current grades are available to the teachers in that core group. We use any type of anecdotal data that we have, such and such answered these types of questions wrong 5 times out of 6 times. We use observations for relationships and or lack of thereof relationships. Those are the kind of pieces of data that we're referring to.
Great. So it sounds like it's mostly academic in nature. So
yes.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Dr. Sorensen?
It's only been a year, so I understand. Have you seen any sort of corollary discipline referrals, conflict, physical, aggression against each? Have you collected any of that evidence within that first year?
Yes, and I wish this had been a normal year because I think I would wow you with the information. Right now, I'm very pleased with what we saw. We had an incredible decrease in any type of behavior. But this was a weird world, weird year. So our behavior issues decreased enormously. Our truancy for this year reduced. I think I think the students said it the best, that they've never felt so supported by teachers, ever. And so, and we did student surveys and we did teacher surveys to show that information. So I'm very pleased with the outcome of this year. And I hope next year what we'll see, because we want to increase GPAs, we want these students, this is not just for our at-risk students, this is for all of our students. We want to increase, and the program has research to show you that it does work. We want to increase our honors classes. We want to increase AP. We want our students, all of our students, to attain at a high level.
And I got the qualitative data from other people, but is this something Paul BARR supported as well?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I'm sad to say that he's not going to be with me next year doing this, but this was something that Cedrica Hester, Rosa McCollum, and Paul BARR and myself researched extensively and are 100% behind.
Thank
and
you.
I know I'm speaking for them, but I'll make them text you or something that says.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Ms. Underhill?
Well, I really appreciate the research that you put into it, because I know there's a lot of programs, so it was highly valuable that you spent some time to do that. And I know it's difficult, like you said, to get things going, especially in such a strange year that we've had. But as a middle school teacher, we have kind of a cohort model, and I think it's huge. It's really important to be able to, it's like your own kids, right? You have other colleagues to talk about the kids and what's going on, and they're off today, or something's going on with so-and-so, and he missed this assignment. But I think that's really critical and so important at the freshman level as well. So yes. Thank you for doing it, and thank you for answering all the questions. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Ms. Pingerelli?
Yes, thank you very much. So does it collect any family data?
Nothing. We don't collect, well, it doesn't collect any family data except for the fact that we have access to parent phone numbers so that we can call them. That would be anything that we'd have access to in the first place.
Nothing personal in the family, nothing how they're feeling about their family, nothing?
No.
Okay. No. One thing that I had noticed in looking at the contract was that the Hazelton Betty Ford, or the subcontractors, shall own all reports, survey results, and data prepared, developed, or collected in the performance of the. So they own it. They own it for up to 3 years after the contract is terminated.
If we were the organization that was signed up for that aspect of the program, perhaps, but we don't give them any data. So that doesn't pertain to what we're doing. We're not giving any of our student data, nothing like that goes out at all.
Well, it says on there's a list of things that it provides for year 2 is what we're paying, I think, $53,000 for. There's weekly virtual coaching, there's on-site visits, but there's 3 comprehensive reports. There's an annual report. So in that, there has to be some information about those students. And that is collected, those reports are the property of this institution. We can get copies of them. So I've shared, and this isn't something I've brought up tonight, I've been concerned about student data in the past. So I appreciate you coming here. There was one thing also on the Exhibit A, which gave a breakdown of what we're paying for year 2. It says it's time classroom lessons, online access to volume 1 to 3 with 100+ lessons. I'd like to be able to have access to see what type of lessons those are.
Sure.
Okay.
There's no reason why you can't. These are I-time lessons. The I is because it's about the student, and they're based on building students' assets. So the first part begins with building community between student and teacher and student. And so that's about the first month. And then it goes into goal setting, organizational skills. Then we kind of march into how to be a good listener, how to communicate well. So it's building the assets in the students, but you are more than welcome. And I can send those to you. I have no.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think that's it right now.
Thank you, Ms. Pingerelli. So one of the things that has always, I guess, inspired me as a district, or as how the district really operates and really responds, right, to the just the dynamics of our student population, and you kind of spoke to that a little bit at the beginning, and the importance of building healthy relationships, across, and, all verticals, and certainly with our students. I mean, there's a saying that reads, no quality learning goes on without, a healthy and quality relationship, right?
Right.
So, it's just, again, we have students, gifted students that you spoke about. We have students with special needs. We have McKinney-Vento and foster students. Again, and I think that's one of the reasons why our community and our parents coming into the city of Peoria, due to the district, is, because we are very intentional about ensuring that all of our students are put in a position to be successful. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. I even had time with Superintendent Reynolds because a community business donated money for T-shirts, so each cohort had their own T-shirts, and he's met a representative of our students with that program. So it's really pretty cool. I'm really excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments?
Just one
Ms.
comment
Pignarelli?
before we vote.
Sure, go ahead.
Just, for me, I need to have a little more information, so until I can take a look at one of the reports, what they look like, and what's on the online access, I'm just going to be a no for this evening. Not that I think the program is bad.
Gotcha. Okay. What's the timing on this contract, Dr. Reynolds? Ms. Hawk. Ms. Myers.
Thank you. The initial first year was approved in April of 2020, and so we're doing the year 2 renewal. If it were not to be approved tonight, it could be brought back if needed.
Okay. All right. Any further questions, comments? All right. I do need a motion to approve 7.3, which is the BARR subscription agreement with Hazelden, Betty Ford Foundation, and Peoria Unified School District.
I move to approve 7.3 BARR subscription agreement with Hazelton, Betty Ford Foundation, and Peoria Unified School District.
I'll second that. Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 4 yeas to 1 nay. Thank you, board members. Is that? Okay. Perfect. I apologize for the delay. We do have a couple public comments on this next line item, which is the memorandum of understanding between Peoria Unified School District and Albertsons Companies, Inc. for COVID-19 vaccinations. Our first public comment comes from Ms. Jenna Johnson.
Okay, good evening, Dr. Reynolds, President Sandoval, and members of the board. So I wanted to start out, as we see each other more, for you to get to know my story in PUSD and how it relates to this line item. I want to share the story of my son's health. And at the age of 1, my son began AZIP, Arizona Early Intervention Program, and at 3, he promoted from there into developmental preschool at Lake Pleasant. And so this past year, he started kinder and just got to graduate in person. Thank you. And the first Friday of school for kindergarten, though, my world changed forever. Friday night, I woke up. Okay. Didn't think I was going to cry. Friday night, I woke up to a sound that will never stop replaying in my head. My son was having a seizure. He'd never had seizures before. I immediately woke my husband, who thank God is a nurse, We called 911. After calling back twice, they said the firemen were still 10 minutes out and my son was barely breathing, still seizing. My husband drove him to the hospital immediately. He met the firemen on the road. They pulled him out. They saw that he was barely breathing and said, the ambulance is 20 minutes behind us. Thank you. You don't have time, because they could tell my husband was medical. So they drove him straight to the hospital. Within moments of being into the hospital, he was intubated. Once he was finally stabilized, he was critical care transported to the PICU unit at Phoenix Children's. With COVID, I'm not allowed in. Fast forward, so that night I'm praying, asking my church family to pray, and that morning I emailed his teachers because they've been his teachers since he was 3. They're his family. And so I am a strong proponent of public education. I don't want it to be construed that I don't support that as parents we don't support public education. Thankfully he is okay now. He's on 2 different seizure meds. The school nurse has been wonderful. His OT and his PT came to our church during COVID to pray with me. Like, they're his family, so I love the Lake Pleasant community. But because of that, my son cannot wear a mask. Anything that inhibits oxygen can trigger a seizure. So he cannot wear a mask per his medical providers, which I do not want masks mandated next year because of that. Also, the vaccines, I do not want him to have to wear a mask if he chooses not to get, if we choose for him not to get the vaccine. And then it brings me to the vaccine clinics. I really don't like mixing medical and education. It's a very thin line you start to walk when you are now incorporating a medical office, which should be a medical office on a school campus. You're sidestepping parental consent in the future if these vaccine clinics continue during school hours, even in the summer. So I just feel the money is not worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. And I'm glad your son is doing better. Thank you. The next public comment tied to this line item is from Ms. Heather Rooks.
Hello again, board members and superintendent and parents. I also have questions on this. Why is the district using a school for medical purposes? This is an educational building, not a pharmacy, a hospital, or a doctor's office. I do not believe we should be offering our kids' schools up that are supposed to be for learning for an experimental vaccine distribution center. There's got to be liability issues on that. And in the contract, I think I saw that the district would be promoting the vaccine. That just doesn't go well with an education setting. We're here to educate the kids, to teach them to learn math, reading, writing. Why are we using our schools as a medical facility? I understand that we want to, you want to give that opportunity to the communities surrounding the high school, the opportunity if they want to have the vaccine. It's totally fine. I'm not saying don't do that. That's their choice. But I would rather us not use the school property where our kids are supposed to go to school and feel safe. And yes, it's in the summer, but we've been seeing stories across the country and other school districts of parents are concerned because we don't know if there is going to be a consent for our kids to be vaccinated. We don't know. And so I think it's just a very thin line of crossing with using schools for a medical device. This is vaccines. Do you really want to be held liable for an experimental vaccine on school grounds? I know I wouldn't. And it just doesn't make any sense. And then I also didn't know, in the contract, are we receiving money with Albertsons? I don't understand who initiated the contract, the agreement with Albertsons to start administering vaccines at our school. I just hope that you guys think about that with voting with this today. Our kids should be able to see their schools as a learning environment, not a medical facility place. My son goes to many doctor's offices for all of his medical procedures We had to see a psychologist because he hated going to see a doctor. He hated getting blood work done. He would start freaking out. He has autism, all these things. And so I want to make sure that when he's going to school, it's his learning environment. He feels comfortable there. And if we start bringing in vaccine distribution centers into the schools, are these kids, I know my kid can't be the only one, are they going to start feeling uncomfortable coming to school because we're using it as a vaccine distribution center? That's just, something I think about as a parent. So I hope you guys take that into consideration when you're voting today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ricks. Dr. Reynolds, do we have anybody that can speak to the contract?
Mr. Sean Duguid is here.
Mr. Duguid.
Good evening,
Welcome,
President
sir.
Sandoval, Dr. Reynolds, members of the governing board. Thank you for those questions. I guess I wrote them down in different order, but I'll just go down my list here. We do not receive any financial dollars coming back to us for having this on our campus. As far as where did the ask come from, it came from the county and the city in partnership with us and Albertsons, because they know we wanted to have an opportunity to serve our community. We will make people aware as far as promoting the vaccine. We will certainly make people aware that it is available, but it is certainly voluntary for them to choose whether they will partake in the vaccine or not. And then we will have parent consent forms that need to be signed and an adult present with them to witness the vaccination being given to any child 12 to 17.
Okay. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Board members, questions, comments? Ms. Hill?
I guess I was wondering, do you know which vaccine is it? Is it Moderna or is it Pfizer?
It is Pfizer, ma'am.
Pfizer,
Yes,
okay. Yeah, I guess I have reservations over it as well, just because even though I know we're not specifically promoting it and we're not stating we promote it, by just the fact that we're having it in one of our school buildings, to me is a form of promotion. I know there's been some teachers that seem to feel pressure to get the vaccine. I believe it truly should be a personal choice. If you would like to get the vaccine, I think you should definitely be able to. If you don't want to get the vaccine, I don't think you should be held accountable to that. I realize, they're wearing stickers and all kinds of things, so I think we're calling attention to it a lot. And I personally kind of agree with the fact that I think schools should stay, academic. And I think we should keep the vaccines separate. I think that is a medical entity, and I prefer to keep those two separate. And once again, giving people opportunity of choice, but I don't think the school should get involved with having vaccines on site.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Dr. Sorensen?
I guess I view schools as public community assets. And we rent our facilities out for a lot of different things. It definitely makes me feel better to know that you got to have an adult present and parent consent. And for those people within that community who want to get that, that's just an opportunity for them to do that. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. It's over summer. So that reassures me too that it's not with the making any students feel uncomfortable. So I think it's just an opportunity for people if they want to take it, or if they don't want to, you have parent consent. Yeah, so I don't have an issue with that.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Ms. Underhill?
Yeah, I guess I would just echo what Dr. Sorensen said, that, we are doing that. I feel like it's an opportunity for just families and also employees to have a conveniently located access point if they choose to do it. So I don't have a problem with it either. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Ms. Pingerelli?
No comments.
Thank you, Ms. Pingerelli. Yeah, I was actually going to say the same thing about our schools being community schools. It was a couple board meetings ago where I mentioned the amount of dollars that our food services team realized at, through the Liberty High School distribution, right? So that's just one of the many things that Dr. Sorensen, spoke about. about us, making sure that our communities, that we are addressing the needs that exist within our community. And with that said, I think this is no different. It's not mandatory. It's not being promoted by the district, and it's a service that we are providing to our community. That where the district just becomes another one of the ways that the district fills a void or gaps within the communities that we serve. So, thank you. No further questions, comments? I do need a motion to approve 7.4, which is the Memorandum of Understanding between Peoria Unified School District and Albertsons Companies, Inc. for COVID-19 vaccinations. I move that we approve 7.4 Memorandum of Understanding between Peoria Unified School District and Albertsons Companies, Inc. for COVID-19 vaccinations.
Second.
Ms. Concher, we have a motion by myself and a second by Ms. Underhill. Board members, please cast your votes.
President Sandoval, do we need to do a voice vote? I'm not seeing all members have voted.
For some reason, I never received it. Yeah.
Oh, Ms. Underhill and Ms. Hill did not receive the voting box. So we can do a voice vote.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Pingarelli?
Nay.
President Sandoval?
Yes.
Mrs. Underhill?
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Nay.
All right, motion passes 3-2. Thank you, board members. Okay, moving on to 7.5, salary placement schedules for the 2021-2022 school year. And I do not have any public comments for this line item. Ms. Pingerelli, was this an item that you wanted to pull?
I did.
Okay.
Yep.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. I think 2 board meetings ago, I believe we voted on this and other things that was with it. Just because of the economic pressures that we are facing and potentially can face, I voted no at that time for the salary ranges, except for the classified. So I wanted to pull this, and so I would keep my vote consistent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have any further questions for the district at all around this item? Or?
No.
Okay. Board members, questions, comments? Ms. Hill? Dr. Sorensen? Ms. Underhill? No. Ms. Pingerelli, thank you. I do need a motion to approve 7.5 salary placement schedules for the 2021-2022 school year.
I move to approve 7.5 salary placement schedules for the 2021-2022 school year.
I'll second that. Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Underhill, a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 3-2. Thank you, board members.
President Sandoval?
I'm sorry, 4-1. I apologize.
Thank you.
Need to get new readers. All right, moving on to action items. 8.1. These are all 8.3. Okay. Consideration of administrative appointment, principal of Peoria High School, Dr. Davidson. Welcome, sir.
All right. Thank you, President Sandoval, members of the board, and public community. Thanks for being here tonight. Just a great opportunity to stand before you and hopefully have a real positive introduction for the next principal of, as Mr. BARR would say, the Peoria High School. Before I read the introduction, I certainly would stand here for any questions. And as you see, the recommendation would be for us to approve that tonight, but I will wait for that motion and second and vote, Mr. Sandoval. Thank you.
All right, you got it. Thank you for that. Questions, comments, board members? Ms. Hill?
Well, welcome to the family. We're very excited to have you, and it's going to be nice to see how things will progress in the future with our new principal of Peoria High.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Dr. Sorensen? No. Ms. Underhill?
Yes, I would just say ditto. We're so glad to have you, and thank you for taking on this challenge. Thank you.
Ms. Pingerelli?
I just want to apologize to the family for not moving this up in our agenda, so they could have been gone for a nice dinner before now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pingerelli. Yeah, that would have been considerate, wouldn't it? No. I too apologize for that, but no, welcome. You know, it's just, I know of your work, and you know, Peoria High is obviously a legacy school within the district, and you know, looking forward to you know, taking on certainly your compassionate and empathetic leadership, you know, to Peoria High and doing some great things. So I know we're going to learn more about you as we go through this, but prior to you coming up, I do need a motion to approve 8.1, the consideration of administrative appointment, principal of Peoria High School.
All right, I move to approve 8.1, consideration of administrative appointment, principal of Peoria High School.
Have a second?
Ms. Contrary, we have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by Ms. Pingerelli. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board members. Dr. Davidson.
Thank you, President Sandoval and members of the board. And Landa, if you'd like to come on up with your family, and I'll just read a few words, and then you can certainly have an opportunity. As well. So it is recommended that tonight Ms. Landa Tartaglio be appointed to the position of principal at Peoria High School. Mrs. Tartaglio has worked for the Peoria Unified School District since August of 1998. Over that time, she served in teaching roles of physical education, 5th and 7th grade, technology, and instructional specialist. Mrs. Tartaglio has also been an assistant principal at Oakwood and Kachina Elementary School. In July of 2010, she was promoted to principal of Kachina Elementary School. Currently, Mrs. Tartaglio serves as an assistant principal at Raymond S. Kellis High School. Mrs. Tartaglio, or Landa, earned her Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Marion, North Dakota. In May of 2000, she earned her Master's of Education with an emphasis of leadership with distinction from NAU. So Landa, congratulations on becoming the next principal of Peoria High School.
Thank you.
Governing board and team, as you know, this is a very big job that Landa has taken on, and she will need the support of her entire Peoria family, but especially those that stand behind her. So she knows them way better than I do, so I'm going to let her introduce them tonight. So, Landa,
sounds good.
Thank you, President Sandoval, Dr. Reynolds, and governing board members. Thank you for this opportunity and this honor. It's with pleasure that I introduce my family and some Peoria graduates from Peoria High School, so come on forward. This is my husband, Troy Tartaglio.
Welcome.
Thank you. My daughter, Tiana Aponte. She graduated from Coop in 2008.
Oh, wow.
At
Welcome.
Peoria High School. Blake Tartaglio graduated from Peoria High School in 2017. I think
welcome, sir.
18. My other son was 2017. Sorry, that couldn't be here tonight. He's out of state. And this is his significant other, Angelica Ruiz, and they're our beautiful grandbaby, and one on the way.
Nice.
And they met at Peoria High School. So and this is Miss Ivy Rose, and she was good in the back, and we had tons of snacks, so it was all right.
Well, that's the least we can do to have you wait for almost 2 hours. So. Board members, questions, comments? I know we made some, but anything else, Ms. L?
Well, once again, we're just very pleased to have you, and it was very nice to meet your family, and we're very much looking forward to many, many years of success at Peoria High. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. L. Dr. Sorensen?
One thing I always admired about you is I felt when you were at Kachina and I was at Cactus, you knew like legit where each kid was and you were tracking it. So I'll be curious to see how you expand that on a much larger scale at Peoria High School. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Ms. Underhill?
I would just say congrats to Glenn, and I admire your spirit, your tenacity, and Peoria is just really lucky to have you. It's a special place, so thank you for being there.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Pingerelli?
Well, I just want to say congratulations again, and make sure your husband takes all of you out for a wonderful dinner after he made you had to wait this long. So congratulations again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I'll echo everything that's already been said. I love the Peoria green. It's perfect. And the nails as well. Perfect. Well, congratulations again to yourself and your lovely family. And again, just looking forward to continued great work and leadership throughout the district and at Peoria High School. So
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great evening. Okay, moving on. 8.2, results-based funding, certified teacher and site administrator stipends. Ms. Myers, welcome.
Thank you. President Sandoval, members of the governing board, Dr. Reynolds. Thank you for the opportunity to share information on the district's fiscal year 2021 results-based funding payments. Results-based funding was established in 2017 and is funded through the legislative process and appropriations and is administered by the Arizona Department of Education. The program's statutory requirements are defined in Arizona Revised Statute 15249.08. Payments are made to qualifying schools and not individuals based on qualifying test scores and free and reduced lunch criteria. The resulting payments to school districts are 2 years in arrears after the qualifying school's test scores are earned. And also in the statute, it does reference letter grades. The statute requires the majority of the money shall be used at the school that earn the results for teacher salaries, to hire teachers, for school leaders' salaries, for classroom supplies, and other strategies to sustain the outcomes for students at that school. A portion of the monies received by the school district can be used to expand and replicate the school site as a quality model district-wide. Payments are received twice a year in the months of December and then in May or June. The funding can also be used for expanding and replicating, which includes providing for costs associated with adding seats and serving more students at the awarded school site, mentoring school leaders and teachers for other sites to replicate the model, and instructional strategies and practices that show results in closing the achievement gap, physically expanding the results-based funding model or strategies at another location to improve academic outcomes at that location and to accelerate academic growth. On June 25th, 2020, last summer, administration presented the qualifying schools and awarded dollar amounts for prior years, including fiscal year 2018, which was the first year that we received the funding, and fiscal year 2019, which in those 2 years we had one school qualifying the first year and 5 the second year in fiscal year 2019. At that same meeting, we did cover in detail and provide information on the fiscal year 2020 results-based funding schools. We grew to 14 schools that year with a total funding amount of $2,162,847. Associated recommendations were made to the governing board for action for that fiscal year. For this year, in fiscal year 2021, the Arizona Department of Education reported that 9 Peoria Unified schools qualified for results-based funding based on the statutory requirements for the program, as well as the Arizona Department of Education funding analysis. The total funding for this year is $1,179,321. Last year, administration also shared with the governing board that the district's consistent approach from the beginning of the results-based program was to have stipends that are approved for eligible staff, with the remaining funding being allocated in two ways: 75% to be managed at the school that received the results-based funding for eligible expenditures, and 25% to be managed district-wide for expanding and replicating the qualifying school site as a quality model for other schools within the district. To quantify what we've done through last fiscal year, we had a total of $3,369,602 in total payments for the first 3 years of the results-based funding program. Results-based funding expenditures through June 30th of 2020 included $1,614,354 for eligible staff stipends and benefits. Subsequently, $1,311,420 remained at the qualifying sites for ongoing results-based funding expenditures to be managed at the site level, and $443,828 were allocated for district-wide management to expand and replicate the qualifying school site as a quality school model district-wide for future recognition. As was the case in prior years, an administrative group did come together this spring that included principals at the 9 fiscal year 2021 qualifying schools to review the stipends that were approved last year by the governing board, as well as to consider options for this year. The principals were also asked to include teacher input from their sites. The majority of the group recommended keeping the stipend amount at the same rate as last year to support the largest 75% dollar allocation to remain at the sites, the site-based allocation for school-based strategies within the statutory guidelines and requirements of results-based funding. The resulting fiscal year 2021 recommendation is in the same format as last year. Certified teaching staff and site administrators who were at the school during the school year that the Arizona Merit, AZM2 is the name currently, results were obtained. So for 2021, the test year was the 2018-2019 school year, and who were employed during fiscal year 2021 by the district, the year the funding was received. That's the group that was recommended to be eligible for a stipend, and this would include a $1,300 stipend for non-title school certified teaching staff and site administrators, and a $2,100 stipend for title school certified teaching staff and site administrators. The delineation between the stipend amounts for title and non-title schools was determined to be important, and also reflects the differentiation in the funding amount based on whether or not a school is a Title I school or not. The total estimated fiscal year 2021 stipend cost, including benefits, would be $660,976. The remaining $518,345 in funding would be allocated using the 25% allocation, with 75% to the qualifying schools that received the payment and 25% continuing to be managed district-wide for quality school model replication and duplication within the framework of Arizona Revised Statute 15249.08. This concludes the presentation on results-based funding for this fiscal year. At this time, administration is available to answer your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Board members, questions, comments? Ms. Hill?
None at this time.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Hill. Dr. Sorensen?
And the results are all, I don't want to get too into how it's determined, but are they just all proficient? Are they all proficiency based on the AZ merit?
I have our Director of Research, Mr. Mike Moss, here, who can speak in depth to Arizona Merit test scores better than I can. But yes, they are.
We're good. The answer is yes.
Okay.
The answer. And I would just go on a diatribe to say anything that doesn't measure growth is not true results. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Ms. Underhill?
No, I had my questions answered before, so I appreciate that. And I do understand that, some of that funding, some of the PD money will be used moving forward, so that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Ms. Pingerelli?
No questions, but thank you for the presentation.
Yes, agreed. Thank you, Ms. Myers. Board members, if no further questions, comments, I do need a motion to approve 8.2 results-based funding. Actually, Ms. Hill, did you have any other questions as we went along?
I was noticing, and it's kind of an interesting thing, I noticed that the qualifying schools and funding amounts, they're all elementary schools. Do the high schools normally not make the cut? So is this an unusual circumstance? Do we sometimes have the high schools or the high schools not performing well academically to normally get the stipend?
President Sandoval, Mrs. Hill, members of the board, the program's relatively new, and for the years that it has been in existence, we've had elementary schools qualifying.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Again, no further questions and comments. I do need a motion to approve 8.2 results-based funding, certified teacher and site administrator stipends. I'll move that we approve 8.2 results-based funding, certified teacher and site administrator stipends.
Second.
Ms. Contra, we have a motion by myself and a second by Ms. Underhill. Board members, please cast your votes.
President
Didn't show up.
Sandoval.
Voice vote?
Sorry, do we need to do a voice vote?
We do. It sounds like there's some intermittent. I didn't show up on my screen either, so a voice vote would be great.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Hill?
Aye.
Dr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mrs. Underhill?
Yes.
President Sandoval?
Yes.
Representative Pingerelli?
Aye.
Thank you, board members. Motion passes 5-0. All right, moving on to 8.3, professional development days for the 2021-2022 school year. We do have some public comment tied to this line item, so we will listen to those individuals and before the board goes through their public or through their commentary. So, Ms. Ari.
Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds, and guests that have joined us this evening. The purpose of the agenda item that you have before you this evening is to discuss the day for professional development to occur for the 2021-2022 school year. Just a brief history for you that you can see before you. Our district, like most others, has a long history of offering professional development opportunities to our teachers and staff so they can continue to provide the highest quality instruction and learning opportunities for our students. After receiving feedback from parents that our schedule for professional development was rather sporadic, we explored having that occur instead on a more consistent basis. And so you can see there in 2017, the governing board voted to begin our modified Mondays and thus providing some consistency both for our staff but also for our community, making those opportunities on Mondays. With the pandemic, we then came before you and asked to move that day from Mondays to Wednesdays. We were unsure at the time if we might be operating on some type of a modified schedule where we'd have to have some breaks in our instruction through the week or some different cohorts coming in, and to use that time also for some additional disinfecting to occur in our schools and classrooms. We have since reached out to our parents, surveyed them, and asked for their feedback on this change. Even though we did initiate the change based on the pandemic, we wanted to ask them if they preferred having that day continue on the Wednesdays or wanted to move us back to that Monday schedule. You can see the results of that survey there before you. 69% indicating they wanted to keep that professional development time consistently on the Wednesdays as opposed to moving that back to Mondays. The next piece that you'll see, and I've also had Mrs. Contra print a copy for you, it's the calendar that you are used to seeing when we bring that forward to you, the work of our calendar committee. We have brought that forward to you with our recommendation this evening to move the days to Wednesdays, and we went ahead and added it to the governing board calendar that you approve. In the future, going forward, we would like to be bringing this forward to you as part of that calendar committee's work so that you are approving that all at one time. So I stand before you ready to answer any questions. And of course, I understand there is public comment as well, but our recommendation is to approve the professional development days on Wednesdays.
Thank you, Ms. Airy. We will now move to public comments. First public comment comes from Ms. Trina Berg.
Good evening again, President Sandoval, members of the board. My name is Trina Berg, and I'm president of the Peoria Education Association. And I, as a parent, got to fill out that survey as far as what day I would want my professional development day to stay on. But as a staff, I was not able to. So I surveyed members, and I just want to say to give some staff input also in this decision. The input that I got back was very similar to parents. It was about a 70 or 85-15 percentage to keep it on Wednesday. Some of the feedback I received was that this gives a better flow to the week, that we don't start the week out with like a shortened, abbreviated day, that gives a good kind of shortened period in the middle of the week to do checks, to do quick quizzes, to kind of see how the kids are doing. So we support keeping our professional development day on Wednesday. Thank you. By the way, I didn't ask for a police escort.
Thank you, Ms. Berg. Next public comment comes from Ms. Heather Rooks.
Hello, board members and superintendent. Well, me and Trina Berg finally agree on something. I would like to understand why, first off, there are so many professional development days with it being every week. My kids have been in the district. My oldest has been in for 10 years, and I was in the Peoria Unified School District growing up. And just from my experience, I remember having one day per month. On a Thursday at 11 a.m. we would get out. So I agree Mondays are very difficult for my kids for professional development. Getting them up and getting them to school on the Monday after the weekend is really hard. So them getting out early at 1 p.m. just kind of shakes up their routine and they're not used to it. Professional development, like I said, if there's so many days that are happening, it's every week. Can parents know what's going on during those professional development days? You know, if there is a way to make it available on the district website, if we're doing it every week and parents don't have to pick up their kids every week early on a day, why is that kind of not being provided to the community as a whole? You know, what are they working on? What is their topics and discussion? You know, I just wanted to kind of add that in there with being there is so many professional development days, just to, you know, kind of clarify with that and see if that's a possibility with adding it to Wednesdays. I agree with. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rooks. Any comment on frequency or number of PDs? I'm assuming there's a reason behind just the number of professional development opportunities that we want to provide to our staff, but
that was a decision that was made several years ago to move to that model. And we have a variety of days. There are days that are designated for site professional development. There are days that are designated for district professional development, and then opportunities for teachers to meet in their professional learning communities.
Sure, go ahead.
So how many hours per year of professional development does a certified teacher need?
President Sandoval, Representative Pingarelli. There is no particular requirement or expectation per year for professional development hours. You do need to recertify roughly 180 for a 12-year period. So, you know, there's that typical piece would be at least 15 hours of seat time, so to speak, for recertification.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pingarelli. Dr. Davidson, Ms. Hill, questions, comments?
Yeah, I've always thought that professional development was kind of an anomaly to me. When I grew up, there was no such animal, and even the parent-teacher conferences were at night. I find it a little strange that we'd have to take up our children's time that they could be in the classroom for professional development. I'm not sure if the children and the students are actually losing time in the classroom, that they should be there when we're having professional development for the teachers. So I guess I realize we're going to be voting on it, so it's probably going to happen, but I just quite can't wrap my head around this, and I'm sure it's very difficult for parents to try to figure out, what do I do with my kid midweek when they don't have a full day and their whole routine has been shaken up, and it's every single week. I don't know, I just find it very strange that professional development is necessary, I guess. So, but my big question, I guess, is, are the students getting ample time in the classrooms? Do they have to go longer during the school year to make up for these professional development days, or are they being shorted?
And President Sandoval, if I might, I want to make sure that we're just cognizant of the topic. The topic is not to review our professional development plan, but whether or not that is on a Monday or a Wednesday. We could bring that back for a study session or a future agenda item if that's appropriate.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Ms. Hill? Good. Thank you. Dr. Sorensen?
Well, I may be venturing off a little bit, but I remember being in this district when we went to the weekly, and I think it was based off the Solution Tree Professional Learning Communities model with job-embedded collaboration time. I don't think that's how we use it because we have different days, but I can definitely tell you I think we need to look at, when we talk about your goals, Dr. Reynolds, about what our return on investment is on that. Professional development is definitely important. Collaboration is definitely important. Are we doing it the right way? I don't know, but it's something that I think we should discuss when it comes to your annual goals.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Ms. Underhill?
I just had a quick question on the survey. I just wondered, did we get pretty good numbers as far as parental feedback?
I'm going to look to Mr. Moss, who helped us with that, Mrs. Underhill, but I want to say it was well over 6,000 respondents, if my memory is serving me. 6,800. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we had a good representation, so thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Underhill. Board members, if no further questions or comments, I do need a motion to approve 8.3 professional development days for the 2021-2022 school year.
I move to approve 8.3 professional development days for the 2021-2022 school year.
I'll second that. Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. And let me know if we need to do a voice vote. Nope. Came up. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our discussion items. 9.1, strategic plan update. We do have 2 public comments tied to this line item. So, Mr. Gay, if we can listen to the public comments first, we'll have you present, and then we'll get into board member questions. You must have seen. Yeah, sorry. I think I misspoke, actually. So that's my fault.
Well, good evening, Mr. Sandoval, President Sandoval, members of the governing board, and Dr. Reynolds, and colleagues and guests. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide the governing board with an in-progress update regarding our strategic plan process. Very simple outline. I know you've heard we're calling this a strategic reset, and there's, I think, some really sound reasons for that I'll get into. And then I want to talk about what the process is that we've designed and that we're well underway in executing, progress thus far, and then work remaining in the timeline involved in that. So I want to focus on just for a second on that graphic. You've all seen it many, many times. Even our newest board members have seen it many times. And the graphic represents our strategic perspectives. And I want to emphasize that it still remains as the foundation for our strategic planning efforts, and it will remain so going forward. Now, that said, there have been some significant changes in district leadership over the past year plus. And of course, we know that Dr. Reynolds started as our superintendent right in the middle of the pandemic over the summer. And of course, we've even had a couple of board members change as well. And whenever you've had any kind of significant leadership change like that, it's important and it's an opportunity to take a look at our direction, take a look at our priorities, and make sure that we're on a consistent track, or make sure that we make revisions as necessary. And then, of course, as we know, the pandemic hit, and that was really an all-hands-on-deck effort for us. We are solely focused on our COVID response, making sure that students are still being offered a quality academic experience, and at the same time that we're keeping them and our staff and our families safe. So after having spoken with Dr. Reynolds for really even more time than he's been superintendent, about perhaps this is a time to think about a reset, and by reset, you'll see what I mean, but I'll just say at this point that we just stop and consider where we've been over the past few years and see if maybe it's time for some directional changes. And so as we got through the winter and then into the later months of the winter, in February of 2021, I proposed a schedule and a plan to Dr. Reynolds, which we discussed, and he gave me approval to proceed on that. Now, I want to point out that you hear a lot about COVID recovery, and certainly there's things we have to recover from. Some of our students will have lost some ground in their academic work. And operationally, we perhaps have lost some ground as well while we focused entirely on COVID. So certainly there's some recovery work to do. But I have to say, from the very beginning of this conversation, Dr. Reynolds has had much loftier goals in mind than simply recovering from COVID. And so I should say, an all-administrator meeting on February 26th of this year, Dr. Reynolds placed this charge in front of all the administration in the school district, and that is that it's time to reclaim our seat at the head of the table in pre-K to 12 education. So we're not just going to recover, we're going to retain or reclaim a seat of leadership. So having said that, we adopted two very high-level but very important goals, and they both have the same date associated with them. So by August 2nd, thereabout, in other words, when we start our next school year, we want to develop and obtain approval for a 3 to 5 year plan that will achieve the following. Certainly, we do want to recover all the work we need to do to recover from the COVID-19 academic and operational losses. At the same time, and this is really important, we want to transform Peoria Unified to a new, reimagined, if you will, state that will position us to reclaim our seat at the head of the table within pre-K to 12 education. And then the second goal is every bit as important. And you've heard me say a number of times that strategic plans that are a document that sit on the shelf are not worth much. And so it's important to us that we keep our strategic plan alive and always a work in progress. So by August 2nd of 2021, develop and implement ongoing processes for progress monitoring and oversight to ensure successful execution of the plan, and annual updates and adjustments to the plan that are, in essence, incorporated with our overall annual operating plan development. So the process that we designed, we kind of euphemistically call the 4 R's. And basically, as you see there, it's reflect, which means we need to take, and each of these are phases, by the way, that we need to take the time to reflect on where we've been over the past few years and where we are and where we feel like, or what challenges we feel like are in front of us. Then we need to reimagine, rethink how we do our academic programs, how we operationally support the programs, and of course operationally support the running of the school district. And then we need to restart, which is really where we take strategies developed as we reimagine the district, and we turn those strategies into executable, measurable projects that will ensure that we achieve the goals that we envisioned in our reimagined process. And then finally, and this you'll see a timeline in just a moment, we successfully execute those projects and initiatives and annually review and revise as part of the annual New Year planning cycle. So we adopted a pretty aggressive, but I think realistic timeline given how I'm going to hopefully share with you how this is going to play out. We are well underway in this time frame. I'm going to talk not in a great deal of detail, but try to explain what we've accomplished in the reflect and reimagine phases. We are now, as the dates indicate there, having started about a week ago, plus the restart phase. And then you'll see that we plan at the end of that phase to bring what we've done at that point to the governing board at your retreat on July 15th. And we hope at that point to explain some very good work that's been done and to ask for your direction and your thinking about the plan itself and how it's building out. Then the rebuild phase is really the one that takes 3 to 5 years. And this is where we execute the projects. Now I want to point out, I'm going to say this more than once during this presentation, that again, this is always a work in progress. We will always take the opportunity, and specifically as it's turning out in the fall primarily, to take a look at the plan, look at the progress we've made on projects, and do any revisions that we need. Part of that, and this is a key again, this work is foundational. And so part of that is every time we do that reconsideration and revision, including this year, we want to involve a broad range of stakeholders to help us think through what we're doing and understand if we need to make corrections. Stakeholders certainly including our own staff, but also including parents, students, and the community at large. So during the reflect phase, which took place from March 8th to 31st, the people involved in that were the superintendent, the cabinet, and Mr. Mike Moss. We reflected on the state of the district over the past few years, both pre-COVID and during the pandemic. We discussed what those recent years and our district's performance told us about ourselves and about what the future holds. We conducted an informal strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. And in general, we asked ourselves these questions and more about ourselves and our community. What have we learned about ourselves and the community? What are we doing, or how were we doing rather, as a district before the pandemic hit? What can we say about learning loss and recovery options? What predictions and projections can we make for next year and beyond? In other words, what does our future post-COVID world look like within Peoria Unified School District? And then this was the key question that we really focused on all during that particular phase. Do we need to simply get better, or must we substantially transform the district? Now, this slide is really a summary slide. Mr. Moss is here to provide all kinds of details if you'd like to hear them. But I do want to make some basic points here because it was really important in our work. This represents about a 3-hour conversation we had in the morning on March 8th. And basically here are the kind of summary points. Over the past several years, our proficiency and student growth percentage rates have been essentially average in the state. Secondarily, we're kind of at what we call the flat spot on the curve. Many of you have seen the economic curve before, where basically you start doing something, you put all kinds of effort into it, and you make all kinds of improvements, but you reach a point where no matter how hard you try, you're at a point of diminishing returns. And so we feel like we're at that point where no matter how much effort and resource we put into it, unless we change what we do, we'll continue to have the same basic performance. And so as I said, unless that suggests unless something changes substantially, our students may not recover fully from pandemic-induced losses as part of that. And I'll just point out on the graph, If you look at the kind of purple line, that illustrates year-on-year student growth percentage for a given or average student. So basically 1 year's worth of growth each year. Then when the pandemic hits, if that student suffers in some way a loss of academic performance, they're down there on that red line. If we don't do something different, they'll stay on that red line. So that said, we also believe, going back to Dr. Reynolds' charge to us at the very beginning, it's not enough to recover to where we were. We have to, as the blue line indicates, jump to a new curve. And that's essential in our thinking going forward. We entered the Reimagine phase. April 5th, we had an all-day retreat over at the Peoria Sports Complex. And it was really about building the foundation for a reimagined Peoria Unified. Now here I want to once again return to the topic I mentioned earlier. We decided early on that this foundation building had to be in place, and we needed to carefully grow the size and the composition of the team that were having the discussions. Then when we get to that point where we've shared that work with the governing board in July, then we're at the point where we can expand the team greatly to include our external stakeholders that I mentioned earlier, because there'll be something concrete to talk about. And I'll come back to that point in just a little bit. And so we created what we called an extended team. Again, the superintendent and cabinet, and then we added another 15 people that were district high school and elementary school administrators, as well as high school and elementary school teachers and classified staff. And again, our theme was to reclaim that seat of leadership. Now this is kind of a graphic illustration of really the retreat, but it also leads me to the what we're doing for this, or what we did rather, for this entire phase. So we talk about this vision and this charge that Dr. Reynolds shared with us about reclaiming our seat. So what we wanted to understand is, what does he mean by that? We need to know when he thinks about reclaiming that seat of pre-K to 12 leadership, what does that look like to him? And so he shared with us 6 specific components of that vision, and they have become stated very, very frequently, as recently as yesterday in the all-administrator meeting. And I can tell you that people are absorbing these 6 components into their thinking as we go forward. And I'm going to take a moment to just touch on them quickly, because I think it's important. We're going to make student-centered, data-driven, and shared decisions. We'll be a highly effective professional learning community. We will ensure that every student and employee is known, valued, cared for, and challenged. We will be highly trained in modern workforce. We will communicate effectively internally and externally. We will be recognized as a community, state, and national leader in pre-K to 12 education through greatly increasing levels of student achievement. Now, there are other criteria as well, but that's the number one criteria that we want to focus on. So going back to this graphic, we then broke into groups and said, all right, let's take a look at those 6 things and how can we flesh the details out of what those things mean to us. And so there was a great deal of work and discussion done by that extended team. We then took our results from the reflect phase that I shared with you earlier, thinking about our 4 strategic perspectives as illustrated by that graphic, and then we went through some exercises where we looked at where we're not achieving where we need to achieve in order to gain that leadership recognition. We identified gaps, root causes, and obstacles that may be in the way of getting better. From that work, we created something I'm going to share with you in just a moment, but right here it says the reset framework, which includes something called mission priorities and transformation drivers. Now let me take you to a framework that kind of illustrates what that looks like. This is a matrix, obviously. It's something we designed to give us a visual for how we want to focus on priorities. So mission priorities are major programs, large programs, not small ones, but large programs whose success is all about making sure that we're making the changes and the improvements we need to make to achieve the goal that Dr. Reynolds has set out for us. And so I'm going to give you examples, not examples, the ones we picked in just a moment. But again, these are directly related to our mission. So each mission priority addresses one aspect of our mission. At the same time, looking in kind of a perpendicular way, there are a number of transformation drivers. Now, oftentimes, if organizations are just trying to improve, these are often called competencies. And the reason they're called that is that they apply to every part of our mission. And you'll see that when I show you the specific ones that we've selected. So the point of that, in calling them transformation drivers, is that they not only support the mission priorities, but because of their nature, they actually drive changes in how we perform the work associated with those mission priorities. So I'm going to show you our specific ones that we selected as a result of the work, and I think it will become a little bit more clear. So our 5 mission priorities are a reimagined teaching and learning program. That's an enormous one, and of course, it's the #1 mission priority because teaching and learning is our #1 mission. Also, the creation of a comprehensive facilities master planning program. Moving right along, a funds and resource management program that's based on comprehensive program management and evaluation. A redesigned community connectedness program, and then finally, safe and welcoming schools program. Now, supporting and driving all 5 of those mission priorities are the 4. We started with 5, and I'll come back to that. We started with 5, and it's just kind of an illustration of how this is clearly a work in progress as we go forward. But one is developing a very positive leadership and culture climate in the organization. Secondly, workforce modernization and sustainability. Third, data leadership and management. And fourth, information technology modernization. And so then what happens, and this is the result of the day-long retreat. Then, and I'll show you this in just a second, as we move forward in this phase, the next step is identifying strategies that meet the needs of the mission priorities and absorb the transformational aspects of those transformation drivers. So as an example, you can picture that reimagined teaching and learning certainly cuts across all of these transformation drivers, but if I pick one, we know that reimagining and implementing a reimagined teaching and learning program is going to involve the extensive use of data and analytics to make sure that we're making good informed decisions every single day in the classroom, and then on a recurring basis, certainly in the teaching and learning leadership within the school, the principal and the leadership team at the schools and at the district level as well. And so the idea then is you can imagine a strategy, and you can picture it in that cell there where those two things intersect, where there's a strategy that says we're going to implement data leadership and management that drives how we do our teaching and learning program. I hope that makes sense. So that's the idea of the strategic reset framework. And so once again, what we've done since then, I mentioned we had 5 transformation drivers. We formed 10 teams, 5 mission priorities, 5 transformation drivers. Since that time, we've actually merged one of our transformation drivers into one of the mission priorities because they had a lot of overlap. But we have now one team, 9 now, for each mission priority and for each transformation driver. Each team is led by 2 cabinet members to provide a variety of perspectives, and the extended team that I told you about earlier was allocated to ensure that we're getting multiple perspectives as we develop strategies. And then we started developing a draft set of priority strategies, and that work is in progress today. We are identifying the inter-strategy connections and the timing and resource dependencies between those strategies or among those strategies, and developing goals and measures so that we can make sure that we're achieving the intent of those. On the 14th of May, very recently, we had a all-day transition retreat where we went from our reimagine phase to our restart phase. Pardon me. The work that's ongoing and to be done in that phase is illustrated on this slide here. We're continuing to work on the strategies, refining them. We made some changes as recently as today to some of those strategies to make sure that they're exactly hitting the intent and the target that we have in our mission priorities. We're refining strategic intent, doing those revisions, and developing goals and measures. And that work is happening through this week and probably into next week as well. Then what will happen, and we're already starting this work as well in parallel, is that we'll start developing the actual executable projects that are designed to accomplish the strategic intent, objectives and metrics, timelines over the 1, 3, and 5 years. We certainly can't do all this work in 1 year. And so the idea is laying out the projects in a timeline fashion to the extent we can identify as early as possible cost estimates and project team structure and things of that nature. Then at that point, we're nearing the 15th of July, where we'll bring this information that we've developed to the governing board at your summer retreat. We will also, during this period of time, develop our process for doing annual revisions and integrating that revision work into our annual planning processes that we have. Then finally, we begin the rebuild phase, which is, as I said, is the 3 to 5 years. I put 5 years out there just to make it look simple, out to 2026, and in which we do the following things. We continue to plan the projects, get approval for them, and execute them. Now, once again, this is where we acknowledge and believe to our core that this work has to be continued as a work in progress that's revised continually, and this is where we'll take the foundation we've built and reach out to our internal and external stakeholders and share with them what we are planning to do and ask for their feedback and thoughts, and that will allow us to make revisions before we begin actual execution of projects. We will certainly continue then with progress monitoring and adjustments, making sure that we're meeting our goals. There's a great deal of data collection and analytics that we'll do to make sure that we can support our claims of meeting or not meeting goals with data. And then, of course, as we go forward each year, there will be periodic governing board updates. We'll have to decide something maybe we can talk about at your retreat, how often you think we should do that. That could be changed over time, of course. And then finally, as I've said a number of times, annual revisions and operating plan development. So that concludes the update on our strategic reset process, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have. And also to point to Mr. Moss if you want to talk about all that graph.
Perfect, Mr. Gay. Thank you very much. Again, we do have a couple public comments tied to this line item, so we'll go through those, and then we'll go through our board questions, comments.
I was just going to quickly jump in before a public comment and thank Mr. Gay. He is our Chief Technology and Strategic Planning Officer and has done a wonderful job leading us through this foundational work. We're excited to have a foundation to take to our parents and our students and our community to get their feedback and make any changes that we may need to make. So this is an exciting time in the process as we work to do that.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Our first public comment tied to this line item is from Miss Jenna Johnson.
Okay, good evening again. After listening to the presentation, and I viewed it earlier today, as the district prepares for their strategic reset, I would like to request that something that be considered to be added would be parental involvement. This can be done by having open communication and transparency between the district and the governing board, educators, and parents. And to accomplish this, I would like to request a town hall with the curriculum department, parents, any community members who would like to participate. And I believe that the district can use their reflect component to reflect on their level of honesty and transparency with the community and build back trust. And that the governing board, then they can, with the governing board and with the community, and then you can rebuild that trust. The recent discovery and the lack of transparency in December 2020 board meeting regarding the elective course at Centennial has once again broken the trust with parents and the community and the district and also with the governing board. So knowing that additional syllabus was available and was not given to the board members when they were requesting it during that December board meeting, even though it was assigned on October 30th through records requests. It wasn't shared with the entire board when they were asked. That was fairly deceitful. So I think this vote needs to be null and void, and the deceit in curriculum transparency needs to end. We should have an open, honest dialogue that holds all parties accountable and is essential to rebuild that trust. a question and answer roundtable is one step that could be added to the strategic reset to make sure that the district can mend their relationships. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Next public comment comes from Ms. Heather Rooks.
Hello again, board members and superintendent. I also had looked through the PowerPoint presentation, and I did see a lot of administration, staff, board members, superintendent, but I didn't see anything in there involving parents. You know, if we're working to rebuild and, you know, restart the district, I think a fresh start would be including parent involvement. I know that we've had parent roundtables with, you know, I went to one of those with you, Mr. Swanson and Sandoval, but it just wasn't open to the community and to the parents. And I think to rebuild back with the strategic plan, we need to have trust built back up. I know we've been saying that all night, but I want to see that in this plan. Moving forward, rebuilding back Peoria Unified School District. Parents want to, you know, have an open conversation with our superintendent, with our curriculum team, with our teachers. We want all the teachers to feel comfortable to be able to come out and speak if there is something that they don't feel comfortable with. And so when I see this strategic plan update, I don't see that in there. And I don't know why that wasn't put in there, why we weren't involving parents with it, and why that can't have an open town hall where everybody's invited. That parent roundtable was just, it was a closed meeting and only a few people were being invited. I just want to be able to give that opportunity to the community and to the parents to be able to come in and ask questions, you know, what's your plan? What is the plan to rebuild it back? You know, and have those dialogues with, you know, the superintendent and the administration and see where that goes from. So that's just something that we would like to have. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rooks. Dr. Reynolds, were you going to say something?
Is it okay if I?
Sure.
Thank you. No, those are great ideas. I love the idea of a parent forum coming in, talking about that. This is exactly what we're talking about, opening this up to make sure that we hear our voices, not just of our parents, but also of our students, and hearing their feedback on this foundation that we are building on. And so when we come back on July, I'm just going to say at your summer retreat. And then as we move forward to bring that to you in the fall, I think it will, when you look at what it looks like today, it could have some tweaks and changes based on a lot of that work.
Thank you for that. Ms. Rooks, Ms. Johnson, thank you both for your public comment as well. We'll move on to board member comments, questions, and I'll agree with you. I mean, the town hall idea, Ms. Johnson and Ms. Rooks, I think it's perfect. You know, we've always talked about, and certainly I'm fully supportive of ensuring that, you know, all stakeholders have a voice in all that we do. I mean, when we talk about making decisions for the fourth largest school district in our state, and, you know, our primary stakeholders being our students and certainly our families, and in the field, our teachers and staff. I mean, it's important to have, you know, all stakeholders involved in some of these conversations. Mr. Gay, I know you mentioned parents going into that next phase, but I do love the idea of a town hall type format to consider, you know, as we create this really inclusive environment of all voices. So thank you, Brad. And again, thank you for your comment. Ms. Hill.
I actually also agree with having parent involvement and the transparency. We have lost 2,000 plus students in our district, and there were very specific reasons why those students left and the parents felt it necessary to leave. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed with the general public. I think it's a great strategy and plan, and I think I'm very appreciative you put so much effort into it, because I do think we need to start thinking about how to rebuild and how to do better and how to incorporate, the needs and the wants of the parents and our stakeholders specifically. So I think definitely getting surveys even, just to kind of get a feel for what's happening with our general public, what their concerns are, what direction they'd like to go, and the town hall meetings. And obviously we make the final decisions, but I think it's a very smart move to incorporate, the students are the ones that really matter, and the parents. They care very deeply what happens in the schools, and they're making choices to leave, and we'd like them to stay. So I think we need to make it a place and an environment that they'll want to stay and that they can excel. So I think it's smart to involve the parents and the students as much as possible in those decisions. Thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Mr. Gay, when I look at our strategic plan reset goals, and obviously when we're looking at a scope like this, right, these goals are process goals. Is it possible to have exit outcome goals that are large like this? I know we have progress monitoring. I know we're going to measure things, and what we measure I'll be very cognizant of to see, right, what we measure matters. Can we create some exit outcome goals at this scale, or do you think that that's not appropriate when we evaluate this reset?
Well, thank you, Dr. Sorensen, for that question. We've really been talking about goals and measuring them the entire time we've been in this process. Now, sometimes when you have a real high-level goal, it's difficult to boil it down to 3 pieces of data or whatever, and I know you appreciate that. However, the goal that in particular drives our thinking around our teaching and learning program, for example, which is also very high level, as it's stated right there, has been primarily focused on the results. As we're discussing it, now, I'm not saying we have that done yet, but as we discuss that, we've had a number of conversations where we've kind of refocused the conversation and said that we need to focus less on process measures and more on outcome measures. So that's been in our conversation every time. So as we come together with Cabinet and our extended teams on a periodic basis, we take a look at that stuff and say, are we straying away from the idea of measuring outcomes and only measuring process? Now, you do have to measure process, but our focus has been on so that we can say at the end of the day, things like, did we get on a new achievement curve like we said we were going to, and can we say that we're there because we have different achievement outcomes? Did we get that level of leadership and pre-K to 12 education because of these recognitions or these measures that we've come up with? So to answer your question, yes, it's difficult at the high level, but we continue to focus on always bringing our minds back to measuring outcomes.
That's good to hear. I'm glad that's been a central focus in our discussions. I'll be curious to see how that pans out. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I know it's a mammoth job to try to figure out how to, move forward. And I just want to say that I think that, like you mentioned, we have a very solid foundation as a school district. We definitely have room for improvement, and I think that we've been thinking about that for a couple of years and trying to kind of figure that out. And obviously the pandemic put kind of a little bit of a hitch in that plan, but I think that was our plan for quite some time. It's good to see that momentum coming back again, but I also think it's really important that we do kind of focus on that foundation that we have developed and that we've built. I think that's important to recognize, and I'm very open and hopeful for our parent engagement pieces. I think that's important too. I know we have done it in the past. In fact, I recall going to different high schools even recently while we still had this same framework and asking for parent input, and frankly, we didn't get a lot. So we have parents engaged now. I think this is a great opportunity for us to be able to do that. You did say that, that our 4 strategies continues to be our foundational piece. So my question is, do our vision, our mission, and our values that we currently have stay in place and in front of our goals or as our planning as we continue to move forward?
Well, thank you, Ms. Underhill. Yes, as a matter of fact, they do. We have no plan or discussion in place about making changes to actually Board Policy A, where those things are documented, so they'll stay the same.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Ms. Pingerelli?
No, I just want to say thank you for the presentation. I think after the pandemic, this is very important and needed, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pingerelli. And yeah, agreed. I mean, there's a lot of work that's been done, a lot of good work, and you know, in order for us to maintain relevance as a district, to continue to grow, and from a continuous improvement perspective, you know, the inclusive approach of all voices, and I know you mentioned that in the presentation, but make sure that we hear from all of our stakeholders just, again, allows us to make informed decisions that have a global impact. So appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
No further questions, comments? Good. Mr. Gay, thank you. Moving on to 9.2, and we do have some public comment tied to this line item as well. We'll hear from Mr. Moss, then our public comment, and then the board. Mr. Moss, how are you, sir?
Mr. Sandoval, President Sandoval, members of the governing board, or when anybody they're still here. This is our, bi-weekly update on the COVID data. And as we've been hearing across most of the state, our numbers continue to decline in the number of cases. We've down from 96 down to 78, a slight decline again across most of the district. We're getting some sort of declines in most of our zip codes also in those areas. We're not going to see a big decline in the percent positive, mostly now because the only people that are getting tested are the people who are sick. And so when the case numbers go down, you have less tests. When you have less tests, you have the people who are most likely to get tested, most likely to be sick, most likely to be positive. And so your numbers on the percent positive won't go down nearly as fast because you're declining the number of tests that you're giving. Okay? We have continued to our instructional change process, and we've looked at this before. With the end of school, we have not run through any of those in terms of changing anyone's classroom, any of those things that we had edited before. We did have to make some modifications even at the last minute for some 8th grade promotions from seniors for graduation and for some kindergartners. I heard a kindergarten parent talk about being able to go through face-to-face promotion, which was positive. I know they moved them around a little bit, and we did have some positive feedback from parents. We were able to meet most people's time frame in order to get to be able to do that. We've started our summer programming at the high schools in particular. Our elementary schools will start on Tuesday, I guess, and we continue to track the data from students there. Again, because the county has required us to report anything that comes to us, parents are still required to report for our summer programming. We're still required to go through the same processes that we have been in the past. And so while there's fewer students on campus, we're probably going to have fewer reports, fewer number of students who are quarantined, each of those processes. And the last piece, and I think that we did some research, on quarantine, because I know that we've had some questions. The important part about the quarantine is we reached out to the county, we reached out to some universities, we reached out to some other districts who have tried to eliminate the quarantine requirement. The county came back to us and said, no, that is not possible. You have to follow county mandate. The county mandate requires that we continue to quarantine students because it is part of the infectious disease process, and that is no different from the COVID rules are no different from measles, whooping cough, chicken pox, those types of things that we're required to report, and then we're required to separate or quarantine students who are susceptible to get those diseases. And so even with the vaccinations that are somewhat required and have exemptions, we're still required to do that. So we did some research on that with universities and with school districts. There were a couple of school districts who made a decision to try to do it, and they said, yes, we're not going to quarantine. And they received a call immediately from the county that says, you need to do it because if you don't, we will not allow you to operate. And so that was the information that they got back. And I will stand for questions that you need.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. Questions, comments? Actually, before we go into questions, comments, we do have public comment. And the first public comment comes from Ms. Heather Rooks.
Hello again, board members and superintendent. Yeah, with the health data update for the quarantining, I guess I'll start there first since that's not a possibility. I do want to give feedback for quarantining. You know, measles, you mentioned measles, chickenpox. Have we in the past, when there is a child that has chickenpox or measles, have we quarantined the whole class or quarantined just the students that was around that child? I guess is one question. The other one is with lunches, school lunches. This whole past year, because of social distancing, my kids' lunches, they had to make sure that they were spaced out enough, and so they had to bring in the kids into their lunches, and everybody's lunches were cut shorter because they had to make sure everybody was getting fed. So I want to know if this is going to happen again next year, because my kids were coming home telling me they didn't have enough time to eat their lunch because it's cut shorter to make sure everybody's social distance and then make sure everybody's getting into the cafeteria. You know, if that's going to be happening again next year, is there something that we can do about it so that my kids are not, you know, having to quickly eat their lunch and not get to finish it? Is there a way that they can eat in the classroom? I'm just throwing out ideas here. And masks. I appreciate you guys lifting the mask. I realized though that it was Dr. Reynolds that lifted it, and I did not see a board vote. I would like to, you know, make sure that the board takes the responsibility for a mask policy and making it optional and doing a vote on it. We want to make sure that that responsibility is your guys's because we voted you in for the following school year. And vaccines, you know, with health data update, we've had parents concerned about it. We've had teachers concerned about it. Their fear is that they're going to get pushed to go get the vaccine. And I know that nobody would intentionally go and shove them there, but they're feeling pressured to get a vaccine. You know, there's the health data update with measles. You know, if a child has the measles vaccination and there's a measles outbreak, I think I remember you talking about this, Dr. Reynolds. If there's a measles outbreak and they have, a child doesn't have that vaccine against measles, and there's an outbreak in the classroom or in the school, are we going to not allow that child to go to school? Or are we going to make them wear a mask? I'm kind of comparing it with COVID. So I kind of need to know what's going on with vaccines for next year. I know they can't, there's a law in Arizona, you can't force vaccines, but obviously this is a different situation. We want to make sure that we're not going to, if we don't have our kids getting a vaccine or a teacher or staff, we're not going to be made to wear a mask again. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ricks. Next public comment comes from Jody Brackett. Is she out in the, thank you, sir.
Again, I agree with what Heather is saying, and we need to take care of this problem with the vaccine. And even though you guys want to do in school vaccines, that's still a advertisement pushing. It's all on the news. It's all movie stars. It's popular to get vaccinated these days. And the masks. I don't want my kids to go through masks again. And I just want this to stop. I don't know if it's a power grab. I don't know if you got, I just want you guys to think of our kids. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Brackett. Thank you. Board member comments, questions around the health data update. Ms. Hill.
Yes, actually, I have a couple questions for you with regard. I appreciate you doing a little bit of the due diligence and finding out specifics about the quarantine issue for the kids, because that obviously is an ongoing problem in our classrooms as far as, just having students at school, with trace contact issues. I guess I'm assuming that the Maricopa County, they actually do have that power. I guess I'm just surprised. I guess that's new to me. So I'm just learning as I go here, but they have that much power, do they, to basically tell us?
President Sandoval, Ms. Hill, yeah, it's very similar to, I would use the example of closing down a restaurant that doesn't meet county health requirements, and they do inspections and they don't do those things. They have the power to protect public health from those types of things. We get this information from the Arizona Immunization Handbook. They have one for schools that tell you exactly what the situation is. It goes through all the rules regarding exemptions and how you file for an exemption and what happens there. And the language that they use is that students who are who can show laboratory evidence of immunity. If you can show laboratory evidence of immunity, you can stay on campus. If you cannot, then they will require us to not allow the student to come to school.
And were you able to obtain any information for the future about perhaps, obviously that's the case right now for the quarantine issue. Do we have any idea when that might be lifted? Is this just a moratorium? Is this something that's new? Because we had mentioned too that that's not normally something we do for measles, mumps, various other things specifically for trace contacts. So this is a little different.
That is correct. And, President Sandoval, Ms. Hill, yes, we've reached out to the county and we had this conversation multiple times. We're not, we quarantine kids because we have to. We want kids to be in school also. We are waiting for the day that they will say to us, you don't need to quarantine them, or if they meet these criteria, we don't need to quarantine them. But as soon as that information comes to us, I can almost, I guess I can't speak specifically, but we would pivot to meet whatever their requirements would be as soon as we possibly could.
And I'm just curious because I'm trying to figure all this out too. This is specific for this, for Maricopa County. Do other states have these same exact issues with trace contact, or are there some states that don't have to quarantine, or is this an Arizona thing? That's what I'm trying to figure out here.
President Sandoval, Ms. Hill, I'm sorry, I have not done anything outside the other states, but I would assume that this information, well, I can say that the Maricopa County guidance is verbatim from the CDC guidance at the federal level.
Okay, just trying to wrap my head around it and just trying to get rid of this trace contact quarantine stuff as quick as possible. So as soon as you hear that we can remove it, you let me know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Dr. Sorensen?
I guess my only comment is, as we look to next year, I hope we seriously consider bringing back morning recess for kids. It may not seem like a big deal, but unstructured play is healthy for students. Giving teachers time to plan in the morning is important for teachers, so I really hope we look at bringing that back for next year. That's important to me.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Ms. Underhill?
I don't have any comments, but thank you. And thank you for continuing to keep us informed.
Ms. Spring-Reilly?
Well, I just want to say, Mr. Moss, I'm sorry I missed your presentation. I did look at it beforehand, and I will go back to the tape. And any parents that I missed or any speakers, I will go back and listen to that. So, but thank you very much.
Ms. Spring-Reilly, thank you very much for that. Mr. Moss, thank you again for all the information and data. Really appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on to Section 10, informational reports. These reports are, actually, we'll start with 10.1, report on upcoming events and meetings. Ms. Ari?
President Sandoval, nothing to add from what you see in the list this evening.
Perfect. Thank you. 10.2, legislative, state, and local updates. Ms. Myers?
Yes, thank you, President Sandoval, members members of the governing board, Dr. Reynolds, good evening again. The 2021 legislative session is still underway, as the final budget has not yet been passed by the House and the Senate. In recent weeks, the education community has been told that a final budget could be close, with both the House and Senate meeting with rank and file members during the month of May. And the House did release a proposed budget on Monday for fiscal year 2022. However, at this time, the legislature has not come to an agreement, and both the House and Senate have adjourned until June 10th. And may possibly reconvene earlier if an agreement can be reached on the budget. We will provide another update at the next governing board meeting on June 10th, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Moving on to 10.3, these reports are on our website, Budget, Facilities, Planning, and Construction Reports. 10.4, District Enrollment Reports for the month of April 2021, also on our website. Okay, moving on to 11. 11.1, Board Member Opportunity to Readdress Agenda Items. Ms. Hill? Good. Okay. Me neither. Thank you. 11.2, Requests for Agenda Items for Future Governing Board Meetings. We did receive a request from one of our community members. Dr. Reynolds, you have that in hand, so if you can make sure that we work with that individual to get that considered for our future governing board meeting. Thank you. Board members, we've had a lot of, well, I'm going to say we had but a good percentage of our public comment this evening has been in and around our curriculum, and you know, even introducing new courses in the district in that process. So, you know, in an effort to make sure that we address that concern and those questions, and I do believe it's an item that, well, I'll just say this: I feel that we should add on a really study session agenda, because I think it's warranted, is a discussion around our process around integrating new curriculum into the district, as well as how we introduce new courses, whether they be elective courses into the district, just what that process looks like to really answer a lot of the questions that have come up this evening. So again, I feel a study session is warranted because I do believe this subject will require some time to be spent on it. Okay.
I'll second that one.
Thank you, Ms. Pingerelli. That said, Ms. Hill.
Actually, I was hoping to also add something to either a retreat or a study session with regard to, there's been an uptick, I believe, in drug usage and marijuana in schools, specifically high schools. And so I wanted to see if we could add that, a discussion surrounding what possibly can be done about that specific situation in our schools. That seems to be getting worse, specifically since marijuana has been legalized and vaping.
Is that within Peoria? Do you want to understand, you know, percentages of what that may look like within the student population, or?
I wouldn't mind that. I'm more interested in trying to find solutions to the problem. As far as I'm concerned, it is a rising problem within our schools, specifically the high school levels and possibly the secondary schools, but I just want to make sure that we're addressing it. If there's some way that we can make it more of a deterrent, work with the families more or something, because I definitely am seeing an uptick in the specific drug usage within the schools, high schools in particular, and I would love to discuss it in a study session as far as what can we do to try to remedy this problem. How can we prevent it from its continuing escalation?
Gotcha. Dr. Reynolds, I want to make sure that you're clear on
if there's a second to that, I will.
I'm going to second that. Sorry.
Okay. I will work with Mrs. Hill to figure out how we can accomplish that.
Okay.
Thank
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hill. Dr. Sorensen? Ms. Underhill?
I have one tiny thing. I don't know if it needs to be an actual agenda item, but when I was talking earlier this evening, I was talking about how refreshing it was to hear the student voices and how important that is. And I was just thinking that in recent times, we haven't had a whole lot of student participation in our meetings. But I would really like to encourage that. I think it's an excellent opportunity for the students to come to, voice their opinion. And I just wonder if there's some way that we could find a way to kind of prioritize our student when they come to speak and submit a public comment, that we could somehow make sure that they have that opportunity. And I don't know how we would do that, but just a thought.
I mean, I'll second that, and I don't know if that's a discussion around the call to the public policy or how we prioritize student voices, but it's a good way to enhance, that service that we provide our community. Ms. McGraw? Sorry.
No, that's okay. I actually had two, and I wrote them down because they're kind of long. And Kim, I'll give you a copy. So one of them is around student data, and it's kind of relating to the Peoria High School BARR. Not just that, but all student data. So I would like a concise presentation on the types. I'm going to read it. On the types of information students are disclosing through internal learning software or purchase third-party vendors. Specifically, I want to know if we are in compliant with all FERPA and HIPAA laws, and if we are asking students medical questions about family members, etc. I also want to know if we are adequately informing parents before they give consent. In other words, besides the waiver form that we have parents sign at the beginning of the school year, how do we inform parents about any questions being asked of their children that are of a sensitive nature? Is the data provided to a third-party vendor's student identifiable information, and is it secure? And as you know, this was a topic that I brought up about 3 years ago as we moved into personalized learning, and I believe it's time for just another update. And I'll give that to you, Kim. You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative Pingarelli. I was chuckling because you said a concise.
That was concise. That
You
was
said
very
a concise presentation.
That's.
We will work on that.
I'm very generally short-winded, so if it's going to be outside of concise, I have to write it down.
We got it.
Thank you. The other one's a little bit more.
Ms. Pingarelli, I'll second that.
Okay, that's right. I would have to get a second. Right. Okay. Thank you. The other one is I would like to revisit our policy IGD, curriculum adaptation, and incorporate additional language that prohibits teaching critical race theory or highly politicized and biased instruction, or curriculum that that promotes anti-Americanism. In crafting such policy revision, I suggest we reinforce what is already in Arizona revised statute under 15-111, which states the legislature finds and declares that public school pupils should be taught to treat and value each other as individuals and not be taught to resent or hate other races or classes of people. The revised policy should also have built into it consequences for not adhering to policy.
Sorry, I'll second that. We'll review the policy and see how we may need to take a look at it and adapt. You're welcome. If no other requests for future governing board meetings, I'm going to move to 12.1, which is adjournment. I do need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move to adjourn.
I will second.
Ms. Conchar, we have a motion by Ms. Hill and a second by Ms. Pingarelli to adjourn this meeting at 9:17. Board members, please cast your votes. Do we need to do a voice vote, or?
I have everyone, or all but one vote. I can certainly do a voice vote.
Let's do a voice vote so we can get out.
Okay. Representative Pingarelli on adjournment.
No, aye, sorry.
President Sandoval.
Yes.
Mrs. Underhill. Dr. Sorensen.
Aye.
Mrs. Hill.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board members. Thank you, community members, teacher, staff. Have a great evening.